Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 277. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. This is Raging Bullets Plus, so says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin and the Duke of You Know. Big show. This episode, to say the least. On this episode, it's all new 52. We discuss Aquaman #1, Nightwing #1, Red Hood and the Outlaws #1, Catwoman #1. We also, through an impromptu voicemail, do a kind of a cover-to-cover of Fury of Firestorm #1. There's a lot of issues that we talked about casually, though, of a variety of titles. Please check the show notes to make sure that we're not spoiling anything for you, because we get a lot of listener voicemails that came in with discussions about brand new titles, and I want to make sure that you guys know what titles we're going to be discussing so nothing is a surprise for you on there. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode, once again, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, the new 52 is here, and it's the fourth month in a row they're offering that 50% off special. 48 issues that are $2.99 regularly, 4 books that are $3.99 regularly are offered at 50% off. It's $159.48 regularly, 50% off, only $79.74. So for those of you that have been collecting all of the new books and you want to continue getting them at that 50% off discount for another month, DCB Service is doing it again. It's a bundle deal, and it's terrific. The only issue that's not included, you are getting Justice League #4, but you are not including... You're not getting the $4.99 Justice League paper and digital combo, but you are getting the regular issue. So just so you know, that's what you're getting in that bundle. An amazing deal from DCBService.com. So make sure to check them out and do your pre-ordering there. Over at InStockTrades.com, remember the Commandy Omnibus is coming out. Actually, it's out right now. I got mine in my boxes last week. But the Commandy Omnibus collects issues 1 through 20 of the original series. This is a Jack Kirby classic. It's 448 pages. $49.99 regularly, 38% off, only $30.99. As a kid, I read like 1 or 2 issues of Commandy. I don't remember the series much, other than I know the whole premise behind Commandy and everything. But I'm looking forward to reading this 20 issues in a row of Commandy. This is volume 1, so I'm hoping they keep collecting these classic Kirby tales. These have been wonderful volumes if you haven't been collecting them, so I highly recommend them, and that's from InStockTrades.com. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. And from both InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com, you can actually get your digital books. So, if you're doing any of your Comixology ordering, not just from DC, but from any of the Comixology apps. Also, they've got MyDigitalComics.com that's on there. So please make sure to check out DCB Service for your digital comic needs as well. So I want to thank them for continuing to sponsor the show. Oh, James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, the Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Hoorah!
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
Jim, on this episode, I wanted to talk about, there's been a couple of comics coming out of the New 52 that have been rather controversial, and one of them is Catwoman, #1. And so let's talk about that one. It's the writer's Judd Winnick. Gilliam March is the artist and cover, and I know I probably butcher his name every single time. It's Tomeu Mori on colors, Sal Cipriano on letters, Ricky Purdon is the assistant editor, Rachel Gluckstern is the editor. And it was funny. I read this book day and date when it came out, so I didn't hear anything about any kind of controversy or anything surrounding the book. I just read it and enjoyed it. I will say that my initial impressions were I really enjoyed the issue all the way through and its exploration of Catwoman. That last page is probably the one where I was like, when I turned the page, I'm like, whoa! I don't know that I wasn't like, as a longtime Batman fan, I wasn't offended, but it was funny how I was more uncomfortable with Bruce in that scene than I was Selina, because I guess I've always seen Catwoman as being the original bad girl. And that's not to say that I'm I feel that any female character should be put in that position. I just feel that that's kind of Catwoman. That's always, like, if it was Wonder Woman, I'd be talking about this in a very different way right now. If it was Black Canary, I'd be talking about this in a very different way. Because these are just characters who I see presenting themselves differently, and not to say that, you know, there hasn't been situations where, like, Diana's been in a sexual situation or Black Canary has, but they're going to approach it differently than Catwoman is, and they're not going to have the mental state that Catwoman had going through it. But what was your initial impressions? How did you feel about this issue going through? Because we'll talk about it cover to cover as we're going through, but what were your initial impressions on the issue?
Well, it's funny. I had a different scene that made me go, whoa,
okay,
what's going on here? You know, than that final scene. The final scene, I thought it was kind of neat. You know, I enjoyed it. I didn't see controversy. You know, I did, first read through, I did go, and I did ask myself, was this edgy to be edgy? But after my second read through, I really understood why it was going where it was going, and why we got that such a passionate, fiery scene between the two of them.
Yeah.
And I actually thought it made the issue better by having it in there.
Because what was your woe scene? Or do you want to just wait till we get to it?
It don't matter. You want me to tell you now?
Well, go ahead and go for it. Just because then we can just casually talk about it when we get to it.
It was when she really opened up and kicked the crud out of that one mob boss. She went above and beyond a normal beatdown, and she had that look of pure evil and rage and just everything in her that, you know, she really unloaded on that guy. It wasn't that was a, you know, grade A, you know, stomping, and I was just like, wow, that really kind of threw me for a loop.
Jim, I think before we go into this issue, we should probably talk about what's our history with Catwoman. Because, I mean, obviously, I know I've referenced on the show many times that my experience with Batman and the Bat Family, and obviously Catwoman, would go back to the 60s Batman show when it was re-airing in the 70s after school. But then, you know, obviously through animation, then through comics, I always read her as being kind of the bad girl in the Batman books. I mean, that was always her role. It looked different in the 70s, but it had to do with the changing times. But this run reminds me, and Gary Arkell mentioned this on Facebook, that this run reminded him a lot of the Jim Balent, Doug Munch run of Catwoman from all those years ago. And I agree, in the tone, the style, the sexiness, that's something that definitely fits that run. So this isn't something that was new to Catwoman. It's something that goes into the character's history. So I found this to be a fun issue. I loved the focus on risk, and then that cat burglar lifestyle, what it would do to you mentally, and why she's motivated to do these type of things. It's funny how if this issue was written from Bruce's perspective and we saw Bruce having this commentary in his head, I would have a huge problem with it. Not because he's a male, because of his discipline and what it is with that character. I didn't have a problem with him being attracted to her, and, you know, it's that whole opposites attract thing, and then there's something between, you know what I mean? That excitement and intensity. I had zero issue with anything that was going on with the two of them. That's something, though, if you look back at the Jim Balent, Doug Munch run, you know, her costume was constantly ripped apart in that run. So, I mean, this isn't something that's new to the character, you know what I mean? And that's where it gets away from me, and it was story-driven, like you mentioned. It gets away from the edgy for being edgy, and it's also something that's true to the character's history. That being said, it's not something that I want to see with every female character in the DC Universe. It works with Catwoman, doesn't necessarily work with everybody, and shouldn't work with everybody. But this was a fun book, and I really enjoyed every minute of it. But what about you? I mean, what's your experience with Catwoman?
Well, my dealings really are more modern age Catwoman. I, of course, watched the same, you know, Batman cartoon, and I've seen her usage in the cartoons, but it's really the current stuff, that most recent stuff we've seen from Selina that I have the exposure to. I read the past stories, you know, with, you know, the Hush and where she finds out the truth, and just everything post that as my basis on it. So the sexiness behind her, like that opening scrambling sequence to get away from the goons, was awesome. That was a great inner dialogue. It gives you a nice glimpse into who she is, how, you know, yes, life has risks, but we all have risks, and just dealing with everyday stuff. And I, you know, kind of, you know, it was this really just, you get this and you understand it, and you see her just, you know, kind of, you know, stick and move constant. And when she jumps out, you know, she's like, oh, well, when she watches the place kind of blow up, and she's just deals with it and just kind of rolls with the punch. She's like, I don't exactly know who these guys are. There's somebody who thinks I took something, probably right, but I'll just move on to the next thing. And that kind of style to her was what I really was enjoying, and that's something I was like, yeah, this is a cool Catwoman. This is neat. I was really in the groove. As I said, I was that whole beginning part, that whole just flow through. I was like, man, this is cool. Okay, I see this, and that's why the fierceness of her when she's beating up that guy threw me for an initial loop, because I see her as the thief. I see her as you say bad girl, and yeah, she there is a bad girl nature to her, but I don't see her as that physical violence. And I like seeing just it's stick and move, maneuvering, relying on her speed, not relying on brute force or violence. And that scene really kind of like, whoa, threw me for a loop.
Well, how I see her with that is it's her freedom. She's got a freedom that most people can't have, because we live by the rules, we play by the rules, and we have a discipline, to varying degrees, all of us, that we can't live life like she does. I like this idea that she can't help it, and she focuses on that in her dialogue, but there's consequences to it. And the opening scene is a lot focused on not just her excitement and thrills that she gets from it, but also the consequences that go along with it, that, she loses her place, and this is one of multiple places that she's lost because of, that lifestyle. So it's not all like applauding that lifestyle. It's showing that, the grass, in certain ways, the grass isn't always greener, yet it's something that she can't, like any kind of deviation like that, she can't, it's an addiction. She can't pull away from it. She has a need there. And I'm glad that, it's kind of a neat little balance of fun, excitement, and there's certain points where you're like, well, geez, I'd love to be able to be that free, but then you see, but there's payback to all that,
oh, yeah.
and danger and risk, and, you'll never have stability, and those are all things that, like, I need my stability. I love that part of it. So, while you envy and you kind of live vicariously through reading these characters and things like that, you also sit there and say, but I could not do that. And it's part of the fun of reading about this character, because there's a psychology to her, and you can see what that means to her, but it's not that simple, and there is like past trauma that she's gone through that drives her as well. And I do like explorations of that, like what, sometimes it's like she's running from her past. Mm-hmm. And, when she's finally faced down with it and thought that past was gone, or that she'd escaped that past, and she has to come face to face with it, we see really how much she had bottled up inside her. Yeah. And what else don't we know?
Exactly. And that was a thing that I didn't catch the first time through. It was my second read through when I was looking at that flashback sequence that we had right after she sees him. She's like, he was supposed to be, how did he get out? How did he get out? He was supposed to be locked up. That first flashback, I didn't really see the little scared little girl in the bottom corner. And I didn't really notice how much younger the guy was in the flashback. I was just initially thinking, okay, this is some guy who likes to smack around women that maybe she took down later on. No, this was like either father or mother's boyfriend or something, beyond that. And as soon as I saw that, as soon as I made that connection, I 100% was behind that sequence. And I actually really enjoyed the fact that, we got to see just her that, she's on the edge.
Wait, father, hold on.
And then come back.
Jim, who did you think this guy was?
Either a type of father or possibly boyfriend.
No,
of her mother.
Dude, if you take a look at the lady that's getting beat up, dude, this is like a prostitution thing. Or, they were living in a, whoever the older woman was, I'm guessing, at least that's the way I took it, because, calling her a little tramp, you think this is some kind of game, some kind of joke. What did you think I would do? I'm wondering if she didn't pay up, or I don't know what happened there.
Oh, yeah. Definitely could be a pimp as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's multiple levels of it. But the thing, I didn't see her in that bottom corner. And that was something I was like, oh, and it was second read through that I saw her. And then I just kind of smacked myself in the head and then completely reread that sequence differently. I was hooping and hollering when she gave that guy the beat down, because I was like, okay, this definitely, again, it for me, that still fit the same Selena that I knew, that fit that same Catwoman that I had in my mind. I'm like, oh, yes, okay, this makes perfect sense. And then this even goes along with the fact that what happens with her and Bruce, that she needs that release, she needs that escape, she needs that something, that whether you want to call it protection, support, nurturing, wherever you want to call the thing that they have going on, she needs that little something. And she even talks about how this is something she needs, and normally she wants him, now she needs him. And I thought that, for me, everything fit through, and that's why I thought that ending passionate sequence was wonderful.
Yeah, I do too. And it really is, you could see a Bruce needing an escape from his world, and yet not being willing to admit it. Like, the inner dialogue she's having has got to be drastically different from the inner... I would almost like to hear his inner dialogue, which I don't know how much of it's in there. If he's even faces it, or, what it's like afterwards for him, in those sequences, because obviously this happened before between the two of them, and he's trying to fight being a part of that. It's funny how you get to see his world and how dark it is, and her being a source of comfort that for him he sees as weakness. You know what I mean? With his discipline, I could see him seeing that. I mean, probably having multiple emotions over that relationship, and but I would say he probably, and I don't know if you agree with me on that, might see what he's doing there as a form of weakness, giving into something like that.
Oh, big time, big time. And the thing I loved was with some of these art panels that they're going through, when they focused on his hand, they had those smaller detail where you initially see his hands like really gripping her arm tight, trying to push her, then it just relaxes. And I love them showing that, kind of it's that last bit of resistance that he had was just giving way to whatever it is, that they have. And I thought, for me, that was a cool kind of moment. And again, I'd love to hear his inner dialogue, and I'm looking forward to the morning after, because I want to see what he says, if anything. Is he going to be around? Is he just going to slip out? Is there going to be this confrontation between them? I don't know. I was like, this is cool.
Do you think we're going to see him at the beginning of next issue? I'm guessing we're not going to see that. I'm guessing a lot of that, and I might be wrong, I'm guessing a lot of that's going to happen off camera. I think it is going to be more of a focus on her. If he's in there, he's going to be like this, a background character. Because I'm guessing their relationship isn't one where they have a lot of dialogue with each other.
No, I'm thinking she's going to wake up and he's not going to be there.
Right.
And it's going to be, it's...
He sees his way out of there.
Yeah, he sees his way out of there. And I like the fact that we do find out right away that she doesn't know the secret. She doesn't know who Bruce is, which has me wondering what happened in the whole Hush story, in this timeline, in this, generation.
Yeah, because Hush would have happened.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know. That's interesting. That's the part I'm loving the New 52, and I'm intrigued to know, like, how these, because there's slight deviations in all these storylines that happen, even though these events did happen. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Because I'm guessing Hush is canon still, to a certain extent, especially with Jason Todd being back and things like that. So I don't know. I don't know how that all works out. I keep in mind too for myself that in the Brubaker run, which which was the current run, the current solo run that led into then Gotham City Sirens. There was more of a Selena that had been through this phase of her life. She was more mature. She had become, through a run similar to the approach of this in that Jim Ballant, Doug Munch run, had been through this kind of adventurous lifestyle, and through becoming more of a direct ally of Bruce's, had eventually decided to go more of a straight and narrow. This is not that Catwoman. This is more of the young Catwoman that we saw beforehand, and I'm glad to see her back. I'm torn on that because I liked the more maturing Catwoman too, but there's something fun about seeing this girl back and seeing her at Lola's. And yes, she was a showgirl. I liked the fun dialogue and all this. I really liked, but I also like this idea that they're showing. If she needs a new job, if she needs a place to live, she doesn't have a whole slew of people she can go to. She has to stay very low key because she's a wanted criminal. She has to keep things underground. She has to kind of watch herself. She has to stay off police radar, obviously, which it makes it interesting that Batman will come and see her even though she is a criminal. And that's got to be something he's torn about too, understanding that, she probably watches crossing certain lines and things like that. But I liked the whole bit with Lola where, Lola says you can live there and Selina's like, it's like she wants to stay on her own. She wants to stay away from having too many people to rely on and also too many responsibilities to someone else.
See, I took it the whole thing with her and Lola. Mm-hmm. La 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 Lola. Okay. I had to sing something. But with Lola, I had to... Sorry. I took it that it was more of a fear for what would happen to her as opposed to wanting, keep distance from people. When that whole thing, like, do you really want me here? Look at my last place. It just blew up. I think this is not a good deal for me to be in, this close to you or people knowing that I come to you and you're my confidants.
I agree with you. She's trying to protect Lola because of the fact that, and, she has a limited amount of contacts. I do think also, though, she doesn't want to get too close to people because of she's worried about getting lectured. She's someone who clearly wants as little ties as possible to close relationships where somebody can kind of question her about her life choices and the direction she's heading. That takes away your freedom when you start committing to even a roommate, at that point. Look what happened when she was living with Holly, back in the previous run. That all of a sudden put a certain amount of responsibility to her on this younger person who is now living with her. Even though Holly was old enough to kind of fend for herself, Selina still, being the older one, found this responsibility to it. Living with Lola, like you're saying, I agree with you. And the way you worded it was terrific. I agree with you that Lola and Selina would have that same kind of problem. But Selina does feel a fondness to her that would lead to that. I loved the artwork in all this. From when the place was blowing up, to her reaction to that, to the cat even on her laying around her shoulders, to Lola's, facial reactions. And I really liked the art styling with Selina when she was in her costume, in the mob bar area, when she was a redhead and all that. I liked that it still looked like it was Selina.
Yes.
That was something that was cool about the disguise as well.
Yeah, and they really did a great job at creating just the individual look and style. There was this kind of a sexy moments when, one in costume as well as when she was in disguise. Then you had these just, really great, a realistic person in Lola. You can look at her. She's that kind of person that you feel like you can instantly trust, and okay, this is a person that she can trust. This isn't someone who's just using her for money, using her because she brings her nice stuff to the fence. No, this is an actual good person. She probably breaks the law, but there is still a good person in there, and she's got her own little life issues and life adventures, and who knows how these two met up, and it's something that I'd like to see explored, and I'm hoping we'll get some more background and see some more just, stories behind her, but also just these action sequences. I loved how they drew her fighting. I said earlier how it's the stick and move fighting style, and it's so hard to show that in a comic book, to show the motion, to show somebody, really fighting up, and just going bam, 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 that style, great Dick Grayson stories has to have that style. And same thing with the Selina style. You have to have that in here because that just so fits who she is. And I really loved how they took all these different parts that you need in a Catwoman story and put it out there. And I was just really like, wow, this is awesome.
I love the way she swings and floats, and it's a lot of acrobatic motion, and it's really focused on fun. For her, it's the thrill. It is something that, and I think where Bruce connects with her, and he doesn't want to admit it, it's the fact that she can't give it up. She can't escape it. And he has that same problem with Batman. It's a different sort of character in Batman and what he's doing, but I think that's something that he relates to with her. She understands those needs, and his need to be Batman is driven very differently, and it's expressed very differently. But it is something the two of them connect over, because it's not rational behavior by any stretch what the two of them do. Even though one's a hero, one's a villain, and there's a very different discipline set between the two of them. But I also think Bruce is reacting to her need for him, which she expresses there, which is very interesting to see this woman who's very strong and doesn't want those connections to find the need for someone. I almost think that maybe her need for Bruce is because it's safe because she knows it's not going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And you see that a lot of times for people who want that kind of freedom. Like, this is the guy to go after because there's something in that. The two of them don't want that attachment and can't have that attachment because of their specific lifestyles. So I didn't have any issue. I actually thought it was pretty deep and cool in the whole thing. I can understand the sexuality being too much for some people, and I totally respect that. It's one of the things, like, I would not want to see this in every single New 52 book. Right. I would be very disappointed if we saw this in every New 52 book. But in this particular book in general, and the way it was presented, I don't want to see this every issue. I don't need to see her wind up in this position every issue. I thought this issue was telling a certain story of what their relationship's like, which is something I needed to know at this point. Now that we've seen this, I don't think we need to keep seeing it. I think, if there's a storytelling reason for it to pop up again at some point in time, fine. But I thought I didn't have a problem with the issue at all. Yeah. I quite enjoyed it, the fun aspect of it. And I got to be going back a step, the actual sex scene with the two of them was something that wasn't the main draw to the book for me. It was her and the development of her as a character and our understanding where she's at and the fact that we've got this cat burglar thief who's on for that thrill. This is not the Selina who matured to where she is previously from Gotham City Sirens. This is more of a Selina. I really do. I reference again that Jim Ballant run as being one that I loved at the time for its fun. I've loved everything since as well with the character, but I think that's where this character is at right now, more modernized. And I really enjoyed it. So
yeah. And it's funny, little stuff that I, kind of like enjoyed more, either second or third read through. The reference she makes to the metallic taste when she's kissing him, that he puts something to cover his face up, and to protect his exposed skin. Just a little comment like that was like, oh, that's kind of neat. The fact that he would need to do something like that, and I like seeing just the fact that it's there and the subtleties. You have this really gratuitous scene going on, but there are little subtleties where she doesn't really start undressing him until he relaxes. Mm-hmm. There's still that initial fight scene. Once we see the relaxes, that's when she starts actually taking off his clothes and things start getting removed. So it was like there was an she was waiting for that moment, waiting for that acceptance.
And I like you said, I liked how the panel focused on his hand and you got to see it relax in those moments. And I loved her expression about him being angry. Yeah. Him being almost angry at giving into this, angry at himself for having that, because Bruce does get angry himself for his humanity sometimes, and I don't want to see that from Bruce all the time, but it worked in this case. And I honestly think it worked so much better because Bruce was silent. It's there's times where I think people get Bruce's dialogue wrong in these type of situations, and it for me, no, don't have him say anything at this point. Keep it very quiet, keep it very simple with him. Don't screw it up.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to hear. Well, it's funny. I want to hear, but I really don't want to hear what's going on inside his head, just because the silence, the absence of it, kind of makes you think, and you start thinking, okay, what's Bruce doing? And it adds to the story.
It's funny. This works here. I wouldn't want to see this, for example, in like Detective Comics or Batman. Not this way. He has girlfriends in those books, and we see him with those girlfriends, but it's presented differently. It doesn't work out this way because it's coming from Bruce's perspective, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I didn't mind this because this is the way Selina's seeing it. I wouldn't want to see it this way from Bruce's perspective. It shouldn't look this way because every relationship has two different perspectives coming at it. The both sides. Bruce is going to see this differently. So his whole play leading up to this should look very different. And so that's why I guess I was okay with it because it was Selina. And that's just how I see Selina that way.
Amen.
You want to talk about Red Hood and the Outlaws?
Oh, yeah. Let's go to the other controversial book.
Written by Scott Lobdell, art and cover by Kenneth Rocafort, colors by Blonde, lettering by Carlos M. Mangual, cover by Kenneth Rocafort and Blonde, assistant editor Katie Kubert, editor Bobby Chase, and a special thank you to Jessica Rocafort. And if I butchered any names there, I apologize in advance because I know I screwed something up in there. So I apologize for any name butchery. This was an interesting book for me because I read it through the first time and enjoyed it. I read it through the second time. I also enjoyed it, but I will find that I did get a little bit more critical of Starfire, but I don't know that it's necessarily for the same reasons like that other people did. I loved Roy. I loved Red Hood until Red Hood started talking about Starfire. And there were certain points where, see, this is one of those where I think I need to see where they're going with Starfire before I make a judgment on it, because this is a Starfire who is very young when it comes to Earth. And in her early issues in Teen Titans with Wolfman and Perez, they were exploring this concept of her being naive when it comes to Earth customs, Earth culture, and being kind of a fish out of water here. But then as she got more used to it, we got to see a strength come in her. If she always stays like this in the book, I've got a huge problem. But if we see her gradually evolve, or if we find out that what we're seeing is not necessarily what's actually happening with her, I'm not going to have any issue with what was presented in this issue. But I feel like where it's at right now, I'm really kind of tentative on her and her direction, because she's a character who's very important to me. I don't have any problem with her being in skimpy outfits, because quite frankly, we've seen that for years with her. I tend to prefer her costume in Titans, which was a little bit more covering than this, but it's Starfire. I mean, she's always been, my favorite stories with her with like Animal Man and those miniseries and stuff like that. She's always been very free with her body and doing that type of thing. So this isn't new with her, that exposure to her. You know what really bugged me? The parts where it seemed like they were going out of the way to make it seem like she was dumb. That was really the problem I had. Not the sexuality of her, it was the fact that we were kind of dumbing her down. Now, if it's presented that she is kind of playing them, because there was this couple sequence where she was like dismissing them, like she found them kind of cute, meaning like they were like little boys running around and all this stuff, like little animals and pets and almost. If that's kind of her MO and where this is going, I'm not going to have an issue with it. I don't feel like I know enough about her yet to make a firm judgment. I'm very tentative. And it really is, to me, I like Starfire's character a lot. I've known her since the Wolfman and Perez New Teen Titans. I have no problem with going back to her beginning, in this whole thing. But some of the intelligence bits that they were playing around with her, I don't know how comfortable I feel about this, because this was somebody who Dick Grayson wanted to marry at some point in time. Which obviously I'm guessing from this, that's all completely out of canon right now, especially with what we know from Teen Titans and stuff like that. It looks like that's completely out of canon. I might be wrong, but we'll see.
It's completely out of canon, because she does, when they have those moments where, he's like, does she remember Dick? Does she remember our friends? And he's throwing out these names, and she's just like, and it's, she does. It's so I don't think it's out of canon. I think they've just changed it around a little bit. There was a relationship between Grayson and her. There was the Teen Titans of them, being together, and I'm assuming, a lot of those different adventures still happened. But she's looking at life a little bit differently, and that's for me what threw her. It wasn't so much, just the way she was acting. It was more of the fact that she was just, dismissive of the past.
Dude, and that's not what's happening. You're not. Turns out Tamaranians don't see humans as much more than sights and smells, and they have a terribly short attention span about all things Earth. Seriously, when you get a chance, ask her about the gang you used to hang with. Nothing. Now, when he asked her about her, you don't remember anyone, Dick? No. Garth, Dustin, Vic, can't recall. Lilith, Gar, you are boring me. Now, if you're right in how you're reading this, that this is just her dismissing them on purpose, I'm okay with that. That's her new outlook on life. But if you look at the way Jason presents it, that's not what's going on here, unless Jason has a misunderstanding about Tamaranians.
That's how I'm reading it.
Okay.
I'm completely reading it that she's either playing him, or this is her new outlook on life, and this is what she's doing, and this is how she's going. And that's, and it's funny because if that's the case, I'm okay with it, but I'll miss the Starfire that there was before, and I want to see what happened to make her that way, what changed her mind, what changed her mindset. Because she's got a couple comments in here where she talks about, the difference between sex and love, and she kind of gets a little bit serious. And it kind of gave me a glimpse that there's something else there. There's something else going on. This isn't. I don't want to say this isn't the same person, but this isn't the same. She's not looking at life the same way, and there's some reason behind it. And I think that's why, and so when Jason started hooking up with her and started, having her around him, she's like, this is how I'm going to do it. And he doesn't have a long history of dealing with her. He doesn't know, the extraterrestrial dealings and whatnot. So he's seeing this, and he's making a judgment based on what he's seeing with her.
If Titans are in canon, she knew him when he was Robin.
But I've taken it that he wasn't Robin that long. I don't think he was ever a Titans a Titans Robin.
Well, he wasn't a Titans Robin during that time, but he took over for Robin. He took over to be Robin when Dick Grayson became a Titan, a Nightwing. Mm-hmm. So she knows. I mean, I'm taking it as the Wolfman and Perez Titans, as we know them, are not in canon. They might be slightly. I don't know. I'm really curious to know what is exactly in canon with Titans and what is not. And I think that's something we might find out in this series as we're going on. I don't know. It'd be curious to see what of Dick Grayson's history with the Titans is in canon and what's not. Here's one of the questions. See, first of all, your explanation. Let me clarify this. Your way of seeing her is the way I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping we're going to find out there's more to meets the eye here, with the character, and that she is a lot more savvy than we all realize. And if that's the case and she's playing a little bit of a game here, I'm completely cool with it. Because it's really her lack of intelligence that's being portrayed here in certain sequences that I really had a question mark about. And it's a first issue, so I'm willing to. I liked enough about this that I'm willing to follow it along, and I enjoyed the issue, so I'll follow along. She's my question mark one though, because she's a character who's important to me. Don't mind the sexiness of her, but if you're gonna, I don't want her to turn into this like ditzy, like a ditzy blonde style character and I've got blonde hair, so I'm saying the ditzy blonde, I'm making fun of myself. But I don't want that kind of stereotype being portrayed on Starfire because I don't think that's her. It's never been her. Here's the part that makes me question as well, and I'd like your thoughts on this. I know I shouldn't be here on this planet. I'm not wanted here. Very few aliens are. So I like all that dialogue. Getting smart there. I'm with you. But what are my options? Besides those two humans make me laugh when I can tell them apart. Now, that bit, it's Jason and Roy. Look at the two of them.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you mean when I can tell them apart? Now, if that's her being tongue-in-cheek and there's more to this than she's letting on, and she's just being lackadaisical with them because she is dismissive of them, like you're presenting, I'm okay with that. Because that means that's her choice. That's not that she's a ditz. That's the part that I'm really questioning with her. What is her whole thing? And it's too soon to tell. So exactly. I'm following along with the ride. I thought the buddy cop moments with Jason and Roy were terrific. That's what's got me coming back next issue. When Roy's in the beginning, and I think we've kind of jumped ahead because we jumped right to Starfire, the controversy part. I want to talk about what worked for me. You got Roy, he's gone into this country, and I liked the fact that this is a younger Roy. This is Jason, who's, both these guys are around the same age range. These are young guys who have made their share of mistakes in their life, and Roy is sitting here trying to do the right thing, but because he didn't do enough research or didn't get the research from the right people, he winds up, having the people who he was helping turn on him. And Jason's commentary about him being an idiot, but there being some respect to the fact that, the guy's got a code and, sticks to his guns. I like that Jason decided to rescue him anyway. Because this is, to me, my favorite Jason Todd when he's written well, is the Jason Todd where, Bruce would not be happy with the way this guy operates. He would have major issues with him. He skirts a legal line that goes outside of the Batman norm. But there is a moral code to Jason. He would not just leave somebody lying in a situation like this. And this is my favorite Red Hood, when they do this kind of thing. Him dressed up as the priest, going in there and the rescuing, I did not see that being him. I thought the priest was somebody he paid off or, something like that. I loved that turned out to be a fat suit. Yeah. I mean, that was really great. And then the two of them are going at it, with the arrows and everything and the whole rescuing. And I love Roy's inner dialogue about Jason then. He's pointing out right now, this is how people view him. This lunatic from Arkham Asylum. Everyone thinks he's crazy. But if he's here helping breaking me out of this type of thing, then maybe he is my kind of crazy. And this turns into this buddy cop action movie really quick. And that's what I was totally taking this as, Stallone, Schwarzenegger action movie style stuff, with the two of them being, I don't want to say anti-heroes. I don't know if we're at that level. I don't know what their kind of MO is going to be, but I like this much better than the Roy who is like shooting up and ready to, kill himself and you know what I mean? This is a Roy who I could see making mistakes because he's young and there's a thrill and an adventure aspect to him. But this is more of the Red Arrow kind of character that I want to see.
Yeah. This is definitely a Roy who's probably, he's shot up and he's made a lot of mistakes, and there's, he's gone down he's drifted away from the hero path to wherever it turned and left him to this. But I love seeing just when Jason came in and it was like, this is they're both realizing this is pretty much suicide. This is not a smart plan, but they're still going to go for it anyways. And they're still going to do it. And in the end, they come out on top because, again, it's, bam, they're on the same page, even though they had no planning, no training, no preparation together, but they both know exactly what they need to do. And the comment of an anti-hero for both of them is, I think, are very fitting, because you see Roy and Jason both have no problem taking a life. And throughout this, there's guys with arrows through their neck. I don't think they're going to survive that.
No.
So he's taking lives. Jason's killing people. So it's definitely, that was something I, jumped on it immediately. Normally, I'm not a big, heroes killing, but with Jason, if they write him as a smart, calculating killer, I'm cool with it because I like seeing that. And Roy, I think it's a great fit having these two both kind of on that same line of thought, line of process that, yes, I'll kill a bad guy to get out. Yes, I'll take down, I'll do what I need to get done. And there is a somewhat code for both of them, but there is also a little bit of a gray area, where they're dealing with it. The fact that Roy is able to go ahead and fool around with Starfire is a little bit like, this was your longtime buddy who now doesn't really seem to remember you, and you have no problem with that. Oh, okay. There's a little bit of that, and I like seeing this, these two playing out. It's going to be a definite, buddy cop feel, but even a little bit, twisted, a little bit off the beaten path of that. So, yeah.
Here's a part of the dialogue where I'm going to be honest with you. I really enjoyed all of the buddy cop moments between the two of them. I'm taking this is a Roy who went through some of the classic stuff we saw in maybe in Green Lantern, Green Arrow. He's, like you said, he's been on the drug path before. I'm guessing Leon never happened.
Yeah.
That he never had a kid.
I don't think Leah's even born, or he doesn't even, if she's born, he doesn't know about her.
Right. Well, I'm guessing that, it's either something like that or just never happened at all. And I'd be fine with either position on this. I'm finding that I'm liking him more immediately because he seems to be, I'm taking it that this is a guy we're not going to see shooting up. He's past that, if he went that route. If there was a drug route in this, which I don't know, I guess I'm not entirely sure there was a drug route in there, other than maybe he's made some bad choices and gone that route. So I don't know what that looks like for this character. Either way, I loved the bit about the worst former sidekick ever. I thought that was great as they were going through, and how it was something that would be touchy for the two of them, but especially Roy, because I think Roy would have problems with being viewed that way. But here's the dialogue part. Is she with you? With us? Yeah. But yeah, she's been with me. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know. Like, there comes a point in time where, and the way he's talking to, is there anything else I can do, Jason? If you wouldn't mind, Corey, could you fly ahead and take out some bad guys or tanks or anything? Certainly. I'll see you soon. It's just kind of, she didn't even say hi. She's got a lot on her mind. I feel like there's something going on with her. There better be something going on with her that we don't know. The way that she's being portrayed there, I feel like there's something to the story that we don't know. I hope with her, there's got to be something going on there, because she's just being portrayed as too ditzy there. And if there is, I'll play that story out. Let's see what's happening. I did like the bits with this Essence character.
Yes,
where we're seeing that Jason had training, and that he was part of this group. This what was it called again? There was this group that he was in.
The All-Cast.
The All-Cast, right. And that he feels some responsibility to this person in the group who is dead, Dukra, and is apologizing for not being there for her and letting her down. I want to know where that's going to go. So there was enough in this issue, especially with the closing, like finally someone to shoot. Who are these guys that went after the All-Cast? What is Roy's connection to the All-Cast? I liked here's the funny part, when we see the Roy Starfire aftermath, I like that we see her handprint on him because of her powers.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a cool little art moment. So I'm not against there being some sexuality with her, because I think that's normal for her character. It's the ditziness, not the sexuality, that I had a problem with her. Or at least my perceived ditziness. And it sounds like you saw that a little differently than I did. I like it better the way you saw it, to be honest with you. So I'm hoping out of the two of us that, it's going to be revealed over time that you're right in there's something more going on with her, because I'm hoping for that. If so, then I'll look at this as kind of a prelude to building up to that. So I don't know.
And everything you said about her ditziness, I did see that. It wasn't until like the second read through I started thinking and just kind of started thinking off the page and out of the box that I've kind of come up with some of these theories and thoughts. So they very could be writing her a little bit ditzier, and if that's the case, I won't enjoy it as much. The Roy and the Roy Jason combo is a pretty cool combo, and it's kind of fun. But if they do kind of ruin this really cool, strong character, I would be a bit upset. It could be enough to make me not like a title. But I'm going to hold on to and hope that there's still another part of the story with her we haven't seen yet, and we'll eventually get it.
And I have no problem with if they take that character that they're presenting here as being naive, because she's just getting. Except it seems like she's been on Earth for long enough for that not to be the case, because she's got a history with Roy.
Yeah.
I mean, he was upset that she didn't say hi, so they know each other. So, what's up there? Mm-hmm. And those are questions that I have. And you know what it is for me? It depends on how those questions are answered as we go along. I've had lots of series over the years where I've read them, and I felt like this, and then the questions were answered in a way where I'm like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. So, I mean, this could be one of those moments. I'm tentative right now on this title, because I liked a lot of it. The action sequences I thought were terrific. I love the buddy cop between the two with Red Hood and Roy, which we don't know what he's called yet, do we? Is it Arsenal? Is it Red Arrow? What's he going by? Do we know that?
I think he's going by Arsenal.
Have they? I don't think they said it in the issue anywhere, though. I think it's just.
I don't remember
Roy.
seeing it, but I thought I heard either on a panel or on the net somewhere that they said he's going by Arsenal.
Which is fine. I have no issue with that. It kind of makes sense, because you would want to distance him from Green Arrow and kind of make him his own thing. I think that's what they're trying to do with a lot of these characters, is kind of make them their own special, unique person, which that's fine with me. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this issue overall? Is it a keeper? Is it a tentative one? Where are you at with it?
Oh, it's definitely a keeper.
Mm-hmm.
It's, as I said, it's. The one issue I have is just the stuff with Starfire, but I'm holding on to the fact that it's not exactly what we're seeing, and that's right now. And if it turns out we're exactly what we're seeing, and this is how Tamarians are, I don't know. It'll be a adjustment for me, but it's definitely a cool story arc. Great characterizations of Roy and Jason, so that's why I have a little bit more confidence that we have these great characterizations of these two. The third one isn't going to be so far off that it, you can't, I can't see them going 2 out of 3. I think they're going to hit all 3, and I think it's just the way they're telling the story, the way they're going to lead into it is going to, maybe be even after the first story arc. This may be something that, for this first story arc, we're seeing her in a certain light, and we'll see glimpses of, this other character, elsewhere, or see it later on. So I don't know, but I'm right now 100% full in on this one. This is going to be something that over time we'll see where it goes.
I am too, because of Scott Lobdell's writing of the X characters before, he's handled female characters very well. So I can't see him dropping the ball with Starfire. I have to believe there's more going on here, and we just haven't seen it yet. Or there's, a path that he's taking her down that's ultimately going to be satisfying with her. So I'm putting a lot of confidence in the writer in the fact that I really liked his run on the X books. So I don't know. I'm gonna wait and see, what he does with the character and just give some confidence in that direction. I agree, amen on what you said about Red Hood and Arsenal. I think those characters were handled very well overall, except for a couple little dialogue things that I mentioned in retrospect to how he's been handling Starfire. But I'm anxious for next issue. I want these things answered. So I'm anxious for the answers, and that's got me hooked in enough that I want to read the second issue, which is important to me. But I'm with you that if we go the wrong path with Starfire, that could not just. I'm not worried just for me. I'm worried for other readers that at some point in time, if there isn't a Starfire payoff, that there's other readers who are going to get very turned off by that.
It's funny because when you mention Jason's dialogue as when it refers to with Starfire, I actually kind of like that.
Did you really?
Just when he was like, yeah, I've been with her. I could see Jason trying to be that little smarmy, trying to be that little bit edge, or maybe even trying to break the mood because it's. Just being Jason. He's being, there's times when he's a jerk, and those are one of those moments, especially seeing how Roy is like, what's going on? She doesn't remember me. He's like, yeah, she knows me though. Just that little rub-in, sort of Jason style, and I kind of chuckled at it, and I thought it was a pretty neat, neat little moment.
See, I don't want that to be a major point of his character, though. I don't think that is, in my favorite Red Hood stories, a major focus of the character. I believe he has strong philosophical differences with Bruce when it comes to the amount of violence that leads him more on the, Punisher-style end of things, because he believes that Bruce doesn't go far enough to get the job done because of what happened to him via the Joker. So I agree with, I'm not saying I agree with the character, but I think I agree with that being a part of his MO. But I do believe also there is a seriousness and a discipline to Jason that allowed him to be, to train himself to get to the point where he was able to come back and be Red Hood. So I'm with you in the sense that there's a certain smarminess that is a part of Jason. So you and I are seeing the character the same. So I'm not contradicting you here in this. And if it turns out that we're going to get isolated stuff like this here and there just because he's a putz and he's Jason on that end, I'm cool with that. I just don't want... I don't want that treatment of females to be something that is like this major MO of his. I want there to be more to him than that as well, because I do think there is more to him than that.
Well, we saw that when he's dealing with the Allcast, and when he saw the images. We saw that seriousness, and we saw that actual true, what's going on? This is impossible. They can't be taken down. Just that we saw that non-smarmy Jason. I think it's just going to be every so often he'll throw it out there. He's does that. Shouldn't say this at this point in time. It was like his line with the the worst sidekick ever. Too much. Too far. Too far, and it was just, he sometimes goes a little bit farther than what he should. But when it's a serious moment, when it's a real moment, we still have that Jason.
Essence, you're right. When he was talking to Essence, there was a different level of respect there. Do you think then that he's underestimating Starfire?
Probably. He could definitely be underestimating her, or it's tough to think anybody trained by the Bat would underestimate anybody, but. He is human. He does make mistakes. He's looking at her, seeing a sexy woman who's got a lot of power to her, who's not afraid with her, she's not, holding anything back. So, he kind of sees her, as this image that she's portraying to him. So, I can see him kind of letting his guard down and not, actually thinking beyond what he sees in front of him. So it's, yes, he's a planner. Yes, he was trained, to actually, look for every possible scenario. But, he is human. And she provides a very good distraction for people who's, normally thinks logically to let their guard down a little bit. And I think, that's what I'm hoping, that this is all an act.
Yeah. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping there's something more to her. She is somebody who... the way that she's handled as the series progresses is really going to be critical to me. Because I'm with you. I think 2 out of 3 are done very well right now. And she could be being done very well.
Right.
I'm very tentative right now on her. I'm because she's a very important character to me. So I'm going to stick with my discomfort with her right now, only because I feel like I don't know the whole story yet. And once I know that, I'll have to reserve judgment. So I see this as being something we're going to have to come back and talk about.
Oh, definitely. This is going to be a come back and talk to. And I actually think this is going to be a series that you really can't fully judge until after a story arc, or even maybe two. There's a couple of these things that I'm thinking I'm going to have to go to, two story arcs to be 100% accurate on where this is going, what's happening with this title.
I think there has to be for readers, though. I'm not talking about you and me. I think for the general readership, though, there has to be some serious hints as to the direction of Starfire in the first arc. Because I think right now, especially with the controversy out there, my worry is if there is a plan for Starfire and to show us something more from her, and whether they're building her from this naive character they have right now into something stronger, or that we don't know yet. Everything about her, that she's holding some things back, and we're not seeing quite everything on the page yet from her. Whichever case that is with that character, I do think it's pretty critical right now with the controversy that starts to be revealed relatively soon. And I'm not saying you have to spell everything out, but I think people are going to need some security that, okay, there's more to this character. You're going to see more with her over time. I'm intrigued. I want to see it, but I'm afraid, because this is a character. Starfire is a character I do not want to see get lost in the new DC universe, because I think Starfire is very cool. It's one of my favorite characters from the Teen Titans. And I really want to see her eventually be the kind of character that I know she is. I've seen her go through this path before, and she became very strong. You're used to her in the Johns run. Right. That's how I see her now, but she evolved to that. She was not always like that from launch. And this isn't drastically far off from where she started. I do think that they're making her a little bit more naive than I've ever seen before, but that could be an act, like you said. So I don't know. I'm pretty passionate that this is a character I want to see more from as this series goes on.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question.
Sure.
Let me ask the what if question. What if I'm wrong and this isn't an act, this is actually how she is, and this is how the character is? Is that going to be for you? Is that going to be a breaking point, or will it be... You know what? I don't... Here's the thing. I like Red Hood. I like Red Arrow Arsenal in this. What I will say, though, this will be a title that it would bump it lower down my stack. If I had to make cuts, it would be something like that would, a book where I'm liking the entire team would take precedence over it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So they're taking a character like Starfire, who I really like. I don't know that it would be enough to make me drop the book, because there's enough here for me to like. Like, there was enough in the first issue for me to like to pick up the second issue. Like, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. The Jason Todd story right now is probably what I'm focusing on the most, this Essence thing. I love the breakout of Red Arrow. I thought that was real, or Arsenal. I don't know what to call him.
Roy.
Yeah, Roy. That was cool. I really enjoyed that, and the interplay between those two characters. The Starfire thing, there was some things I liked with Starfire. There was a lot more I'm very uncomfortable with. But, like it's any Prelude stuff. I don't know where it's going yet, so it's too soon to tell. But yeah, it would be something that, if we were to say if I had to say right now I have to cut half of the 52 books, this would be in this would be one of those in the lower stack right now. Because there's 52 titles. So if I had to make, let's just say I had to cut the whole line in half, this would wind up in the lower half.
Yeah, okay.
So, I guess that's the honest way I could put it. I wouldn't be happy about that, though, because I want to know. So, but, that's where it's falling right now. I guess that's the best way I can do it. It's, there's the top 50 and there's there's the top of the 52 and there's the lower half of the 52, and that's there right now. But on the flip side, I can see this also being a title that could bump up to the top half, depending on the direction of Starfire.
Right.
So it is kind of a make or break character for me. I like the character that much.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you on that point. She's definitely going to be the eyes on, see where it goes.
Because when I heard that she was going to be in this book, I was like, whoa, I hope they handle her well, and we'll see. So it's a tentative.
Yeah.
There it is, going into that tunnel.
I kind of shocked you with this one, because I know you were expecting me to go to Savage Hawkman first, and I got to be honest with you, I couldn't wait to talk Aquaman. I'm a huge Aquaman fan. I've referenced on the show many times the Peter David run, and I got to be honest with you, this was out of the new 52 launches, this is easily in my top 10 list, this Aquaman book. it has the potential to wind up in my top 5. I loved it that much. It's Jeff Johns' writer, Ivan Reis, I butcher his last name. It's Reis, and I know I butcher it every single time. Joe Prado on inks, Rod Reis, colorist, Nick J. Napolitano, letterer, Sean Makowitz, associate editor, Patrick McCallum, editor, and Aquaman created by Paul Norris. So this is one of those books that, I don't know, I was so anticipating this. I know you and I talked about this during things like Blackest Night and Brightest Day, how much we wanted to see an Aquaman series coming. And I was so thrilled and satisfied with how this came. Let me ask you a question. Hand, not a hand, do you care?
I don't care. I think this is an awesome book.
I do too.
And I completely agree with you on the top 10. This, was, Aquaman really through Blackest Night and through everything that's been going on. I've started really going, this could be a really cool character. And he was a character I never really thought too much about because my exposure to him is Super Friends. And the Super Friends Aquaman, he wasn't a tough guy. He called it a fish. The fish did the work for him, and that was about it. This is a butt kicker. This is a really cool dude, and this is somebody you don't want to mess with.
No,
and
not at all.
really like seeing that. And this was a really great story, and I'm like, Aquaman, this is cool.
Yeah. This series, I was just, whoa. I'm like, this is really awesome. I loved, right away, we open up in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean with this undersea menace coming in. A great way to kick off an issue because we're seeing that what we think we know about the ocean isn't true. And, these are creatures that have been hidden below there. They don't know much about the surface world. So they're coming up to see what's going on. And then we jump right from that to Boston, where we see Aquaman jumping in the middle of a situation and helping out the police. And, am I going to fire bullets at Aquaman to the point where, I cause the dude to bleed a little bit above the eye? It's just not a good move at all. And I love that about him. I've always liked the fact that he's got the superpowers. He's got a certain amount of invulnerability. But I also like the fact that you've got a guy who knows that bullets can do some form of damage to him. And he's standing there taking them anyway, getting annoyed, showing, his strength from being underseas and, the pressure, dealing with those deep pressures of the seas and things like that that are part of his powers. And I've always liked this in the renditions that I've read, and I'm going to reference again the Peter David run so many times in this because that for me was my run where I really started to understand how cool Aquaman can be. And I've read other runs since then of Aquaman, afterwards, but also gone back before. But that was the run that first, I think everyone's got their first run with a character that makes you understand the character and fall in love with the character and go back and want to read more and then want to read forward. That was the run for me that kind of established a foundation of, okay, what I thought I understood about the character from television is so off-kilter. And Jeff Johns here really gets how to pull in all of the character's history, not throw anything out the window, make an Aquaman that visually, physically, and when I say visually, the whole art team, everybody, this is a creative team who just gels together. Such a good job to take, the Brightest Day team and put them on this book, and just say, this is going to be your iconic Aquaman. This is what Aquaman is. And I'm hoping people really just give this title a shot and stick with it because first issue out of the starting gate for me, you're going to hear a lot of gushing because this is one of those titles I give the highest possible recommendation to for on every level. There was not a wasted panel in this book.
Yeah, I love the fact that he's able to flip an armored car and they still think, I can shoot him. I was dying when I saw that. I was just like, what are you, mental? He flipped your truck. It's not even like he stopped it or he, jumped out of the way, cut the tires, or he flipped the thing. That's multiple tons, just bam, up and over. And you think your AK is actually going to do anything to him? I love that. And then seeing,
No, he doesn't though, dude. Look at the art. I think we're reading this wrong. Because I'm thinking it's even cooler than that now. This is a guy who shoots out of panic. Look at the sequence. Put the gun down. And the guy's like stumbling out of there. Look, he's not even looking at Aquaman. And that's not an art accident. This art's too good for that to be happening. This dude's panicked. That was a freak out.
Actually, you know what? You're right.
This is awesome.
Yeah. You can see the look on the dude's face as he's actually firing.
I mean, how great is that? I mean, because this art's too good. There's no way that they made an accident there. I mean, that's meant to be a freak out, and that's awesome. I really, really like that.
Because the panel right before that, you see the guy, he's got the, so he's kind of completely groggy, and as he's crawling out, he fires, and it's a hair trigger. It's a full auto, so yeah, that would happen. That is awesome. It just... I love the look of anger. Just that, well, actually not even anger. It was more of annoyance. As he's sitting there, he's like, really? Really you're going to do that?
Sam's Seafood Restaurant. This was such a great moment. Because I love seeing the different interactions from people, because this is a celebrity walking in. So this is a real-world experience. A guy like Aquaman walks in your place. First of all, we're going to be just as ditzy on this one. I'm like, I honestly would like to think, and I do think I'm like this, if I said something, it would be, I hope, super quick and leave the guy alone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think this is something that celebrities, and I'm sure comic writers and artists and things like that have to deal with all the time as well. I mean, any celebrity in any form medium, authors, television actors, things like that, go through what Aquaman's going through here. It's, how do you get a moment's peace? The guy's having dinner. Yes. Know what I mean? I think when you're a celebrity or something like that, you expect people to maybe, you want to say a quick hello or something like that, but then you get away. Leave him alone. There were people pestering him in there.
Well, the blogger, the podcaster, that guy, I was like, oh, giving us a bad name and a bad rep, dude. But to be honest, that's a very natural reaction. I could see somebody doing that, just going beyond what they should do. He sat down, he starts questioning the guy. I'm like, you know what? He's just sitting there eating his dinner. He just wants to eat a dinner. Leave him alone. Give him some privacy. I loved just this interaction, and then especially they're like, "You eat fish? What? You talk to fish? You can't eat them."
It's crazy nuts. It's first of all, that would be a conversation like if somebody was like Aquaman was doing that. I could see you and I having that discussion at our table.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be chastising him over his shoulder, but there's people, I've seen this so many times where people think like they have this right to like violate your space there. And when I was reading this, I'm like, what great commentary. I'm like, this is real world. It's one of the reasons why, I mean, we've been very fortunate over the years in interviews that we've done on the show that have come about through passing conversations with people or, meeting them at conventions or something like that at their tables or, whatever. We've been lucky for opportunities or through emails and stuff. I've never done, I hope I've never done this to somebody where like I violated their personal space, like at a time where they're away from a convention, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Unless they said a hello to me. I'm hoping that if I saw somebody I liked, I gave a quick comment and walked on and let them kind of in peace, just enjoy themselves. And I'm not just talking about, comic authors and artists and things like that. I'm talking about any type of celebrity or something like that. I'm hoping I would never be that guy there because I wanted to punch Buggy this guy. I saw this at the moment because I'm like, I've seen that so many times before where it's like, I think you got to pick up a certain vibe. I mean, look at Aquaman, the way he's carrying himself. You need to walk away there, dude. But I loved that through this blogger, we get to see the things that Aquaman is not telling him, like treasures he's found over time and things like that. That's how this guy's gotten riches. There's a lot hidden under the sea that he's been able to take advantage of that keeps him going. And I love that this is a compassionate guy, though, too, because it wasn't just his annoyance at the people who were ruining his lunch. It was the waitress who was being kind to him because... I'm sorry, I must look terrible. This is my third consecutive shift. And, she's like sitting here saying, okay, here's this like handsome superhero guy who's in here. And I don't want to be a fool. And I could see myself, even being a guy going over and talking to him. And if I worked as a waiter in the restaurant, wanting to make a good impression, not wanting to say the wrong thing, hopefully making his experience good in my restaurant. And that's her MO here. So I was connecting with her saying, okay, God, I hope that that's me when I meet somebody in that position, that I'm at least kind and that they can pick up the vibe that like I'm trying to give you a positive experience here. And giving you a positive impression of me. Because, like, this whole thing about her trying to put 2 kids through college, and it's, oh, I'm sorry again, my problems are probably ridiculous compared to yours. And I love that he found that, like, you could tell he found, like, a charm to that. You know, he's very calm, very relaxed, very humble in those moments. You know, and that's where I connected with him. Like, okay, this is a nice dude, you know, who's just being nice, enjoying. He wants his fish and chips, and I did double take with that too. But what a great way to do that. The gall of people though to, like, you know, question him. That would be something I would never question somebody I didn't know personally about their choice in food.
I loved how the one guy though did correct him. They're like, yeah, he's like, when he's like, well, you talk to fish. I don't talk to fish. And the other guy's, yeah, you do. Everybody knows Aquaman talks to fish. If the guy's telling you he don't talk to fish, he doesn't talk to fish. Mm-hmm. You don't sit there and say, yeah, you can. I was like, that whole sequence just had me busting up. And I was just like, this is outstanding.
Well, this is what I liked about Gail Simone's Wonder Woman run. You know, when she was explaining the lasso. Yeah. You know, John's here is explaining, you know, this is what's going on. Fish don't talk. Their brains are too primitive to carry on a conversation. You know, I reach into their midbrains and I telepathically push them to help me out. Squids, sharks, eels, it's all the same. But then dolphins are another story. So, you know, which shows that there's a, you know, we know dolphins, there's been studies that have shown that dolphins have a little bit more intelligence. So I want to, as the series goes on, it'd be cool to see how are dolphins different. You know, what does that look like for Aquaman? Those are cool. I mean, see, in that short sequence, that's got me intrigued to learn more about how his powers work and what that actually means for him. But I got him. I felt bad for the poor guy not being able to finish his lunch in the restaurant. Yeah. That's got to be – it made me feel for celebrities in general and just made me, like, question myself. Like, have I ever been stupid enough to do something like that? I hope not. you know, anybody. And I think, you know, with friends, you got to be careful with that, you know, where take the celebrity thing out of it. I wouldn't walk up to a couple sitting at a table that I know I'd do a quick polite hello, you know, if they were friends of mine. But if you see somebody on a date, I've been with friends of mine before where I've had to tell them, dude, they're on a date. Walk away. You know what I mean? Because they're too polite to say it. You know, those are certain things. This is a boundary that's being crossed here. Well, that happened on my first date with my wife. I'm on my first date with my wife at a restaurant called The Cooker, and I have 2 friends of mine that showed up. You know, it was like one of those things where this is my first date, right? They showed up there because they knew where I was taking her. Like, who in their right mind would do that to a friend? You know what I mean? And then they're interacting with us. I'm like, this is my first date. You're kidding, right? I was ready to leave.
And for the record, it was not me.
So no, it was not you. No, I would have said it was you. I would have said if it was you. No, you know better. You wouldn't do something like that. So that was I connected with Aquaman in a way I didn't expect. I am a big fan with Aquaman of seeing his history. I loved seeing his dad as a lighthouse keeper and this sense of that there's responsibility. Someone has to stay on land to help those captains, Arthur. Someone has to watch the shores. It's called responsibility. So, you know, the dad's sitting there saying, yeah, sure, I could be a captain of my own ship, but this is something that needs to be done and it's extremely important. And, you know, Aquaman's sense of responsibility, I wonder if what's going on with the people in Atlantis, if Arthur's going to be able to stay away, you know? Because he's saying, I'm not going back to Atlantis, let them find a new king. Is he going to be able to do that? You know, or is he going to find his responsibility elsewhere? You know, because he's trying to start a new life on land and that type of thing. But is it going to be that simple? I don't know. And that could be taken 2 ways.
Yeah, I'm thinking with this, deep sea mess coming up, that's going to throw off his plans, and that's going to make things a little bit different for him. But I think going forward, we're going to see him at the lighthouse. We're going to see him on land, you know, not as the king of Atlantis for a while.
And I like that because I like his duality. Aquaman, I'm not a big fan of him always distancing himself from... I shouldn't say I'm not a big fan of it. There's been great explorations of him solely focusing under the sea. There's been great explorations of him doing like a hybrid thing. And there's been explorations of him being mainly land-based, although it's kind of tricky to say because he needs, you know, there is the water element to what he does. I was so glad to see Mira.
Yes.
And that relationship, because that's so important to me to have her in there. And I guess are we going to get Aqualad in this?
I don't know. I think we're going to get a baby. Yeah, I think we're going to see something, just...
No. Aqualad, I mean, the new...
the new Aqualad. Yeah. I don't know.
Because he was in Brightest Day, so I'm wondering if we're going to get that character. And I'm almost positive, because I thought John said that originally, but I'm wondering if that was said meaning before the New 52 or not. I don't know. I'd like to see him, because I think he's a great character, except I'm so liking the focus on Arthur right now.
Yeah.
That I don't need to, unless there's a reason to see him, I don't need to see him yet. Because I really loved Aquaman in this issue, which is drastically important to me. The title of the book is Aquaman. Gotta love him. Out of the starting gate, this issue really captivated me with everything that I think works about the character. There's a strength to him. There's a coolness to him. The action sequence, I think, fit what's the best about Aquaman. And I like his whole fish out of water thing. That's something that... there's something true about that, and you and I talk about like some of the drawbacks to being a hero, and I think a lot of those drawbacks provide to being any kind of celebrity where you're in the public eye. There's a certain amount of privacy that you lose from time to time. That's very hard. And you've got to have sympathy for that type of thing and respect. And I know people, there's always that thing where, well, that's part of being a celebrity and all that. I think, no, I think people can have dinner.
Yeah.
If they invite you over after you've said your hello, or something like that, then that's one thing. But if they haven't, you need to say your hello, something respectful, and walk. Leave them alone. Don't question them about their fish and chips. I don't know. Cool book.
Yeah.
It's definitely highest possible recommendation for me. I loved it out of the starting gate. I cannot wait for issue 2. It will be a top of the stack read.
Oh yeah, big time. And just some of the art sequences. We talk about just the action, how I like seeing a really good action told, but just this tenderness between him and Mira.
Yeah.
Those 2 pages are absolutely wonderful. That opening scene when we first see him, when we first see her, she's like, it's getting late, I know, and she's kind of like, wrapped arms around him. Just the way that whole thing's laid out, you got the ocean spray in the backdrop, and it was just this really cool moment, and throughout all of this stuff, it was just, a great balance of cool action sequences, some regular everyday kind of annoyance where I wanted to reach in and smack the podcaster, and then just these moments, these personal...
he's a blogger, not a podcaster, right?
Well, I keep calling him a podcaster because
why?
Podcast.
Yeah. But I'm not taking responsibility for him.
Well, I'm kind of like you. I am worried that I do stuff like that, and because I know I get starstruck sometimes, when seeing creators, and just so I always worry that I'm making an idiot of myself, or I sound stupid when I'm talking to people. So
you know what the difference is, Jim? The fact that you're worried about it means that you don't. I mean, you might go a little too, I think we've probably both made the mistake of going a little too far sometimes, and I think that's normal, but not to, this guy, it's like, you didn't go a little too far, you went extreme.
Yeah.
This is a major violation of personal space and time. He didn't ask for an interview, he took an interview. There's a huge, you know what I'm saying? That's a huge difference there. This is not an environment, he's not at a convention with Aquaman or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think this is, and I think there are bloggers like this. I think that's the worst of the worst. Where you're thinking that because you've got a microphone in hand, have right to blog anywhere. That's just doesn't work. I don't think just because you have a website, you have the right to blog wherever you want to. There's something called permission. Actually, I'm trying to have lunch is a no.
Yeah.
And I loved seeing, again, facial expressions where he's being humble there. When this guy, he could have kicked this guy's butt out of the chair. He didn't do it. He went along with it, even though his space was being violated here. And his patience here, I thought was incredible. You talked about the art. I want to comment on the art and coloring in the flashback sequence of him and his dad at the table in the restaurant. I love that kind of shading tones. I don't know what you want to call that when they do that kind of thing, but that's something that if you blew that up, you could easily frame and put on the wall as a piece of fine art. And it's just a picture of a boy and a dad. There's not that iconic Aquaman thing in there or something like that, but I was a big fan of just the shading and the tones of those sequences. To set it aside as being something from the past, it just looked to me beautiful.
Yeah.
The lighthouse sequence, my mom's a collector of lighthouses. I thought that was absolutely beautiful. There's so much to this that there is to love. Aquaman's book should feel very visual. The sea should feel like it's coming to life, and that had all those elements of it. There was a coolness factor to this that I felt the first time I read Tide and Time, and from issue number 1 of Peter David's run, to when Aquaman lost his hand to Piranha, straight on through, in the series as it was going on. This has that coolness factor to it. It's different. It's fresh. I don't feel like this is ground that's being retread. I feel this is a character that's gone through history that we've seen in the past with him, and I want to follow him more. And this is exactly what, God, I was hoping for this with an Aquaman series, and I'm hoping this gets a readership that it deserves.
Like a human helicopter, the Flash rotates his body, rising faster, faster!
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Jamie Dunst, JD74 on the boards, and came calling to talk about some comics. I wanted to start off with All-Star Western. This was a book that I knew I wanted to try out the first issue on, and I was very happy I did. Seeing Jonah Hex in this, Gotham City was a really interesting story, and I liked his team up with Jeremiah Arkham, and I liked how you got Jeremiah kind of explaining from his standpoint who Jonah Hex is as they're solving this mystery. And I think the last page, I think every last page I've seen so far has been really good and really makes me intrigued for the next issue. Another one I checked out was Aquaman, which I knew I was going to like because it's Jeff Johns and Yvonne Hayes for the creative team, but I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy this. It was a very kind of lighthearted story where you get to kind of see how people see Aquaman, which I thought was kind of funny. The last page, again, very interesting. Next one was Teen Titans, which I was much happier with this than I thought I was going to be. I think they really, the writer really got Tim Drake, and Wonder Girl seems rather different, but maybe in a good way. I'm not really sure, but this was some really good writing for Teen Titans, and I'm curious to see where that's going to go. The next one is Green Lantern, The New Guardians. I liked it. Wasn't crazy about the art, but not bad. I mean, it definitely is interesting. Definitely looking forward to the next issue. It's Green Lantern. I love Green Lantern. And then the last book I saw this week was Superman. I loved it. I thought this was exactly what Superman comics should be. I love the whole tearing down the Daily Planet and then starting fresh, sort of like the new relaunch. I love seeing all the characters that I know and love in the book. I love seeing the adventure that when Superman was on, and the only thing that bothered me was the last page. Because I had already seen it, I feel like it lost its impact. Not that it wasn't impactful. I think it would have been more impactful if I had already seen that page. But I love it, and Superman will be one of my monthly buys. And it's one of those things that I only get X amount of books a month, and my biggest complaint for DC at the moment is there are too many books that I want to read, and but it's a good situation to have, and I'm going to be checking a lot in trade because I think a lot of them will read better in trade. But I'm loving this new DC. I think they're doing an amazing job, and as a consumer of DC products, I couldn't be happier. So that's about it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
I guess I want to start with Superman 1 because that was a book, I'm going to be honest with you, I was so focused on Action Comics, I was very worried about Superman. It was one of those, I'm like, am I going to like this? And I agree with him. I loved it, which I was so, because, I'm a big fan of the Lois and Clark marriage and all that, but, a book that I read right away when it was a book, I'm going to admit, I was kind of, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I don't know if I'm going to want to read it. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. But I had the opposite reaction when I read it. I couldn't put it down. I loved the whole Daily Planet bit. I agree with him, because when I saw that was going to be coming down, I never thought it was going to be going to like having Morgan Edge and stuff like that brought in and kind of revamping, that whole MO with everything. I actually like Lois with a boyfriend, and how, that reacted with Clark. Was something that I thought was interesting, because he's hearing in the background, Lois talking about her impressions of him as a loner, and how that's kept a distance between the two of them and those types of things. This is very early on in their relationship, and I like that. I'm actually really enjoying that exploration. I liked the commentary on the Superman that is showing more and more powers as time goes on. This is a Superman who's continuing to evolve right now. He's not where we have seen him in the past yet. He's certainly a lot more powerful than the Superman we're currently seeing in action, because this dude's flying. But I loved seeing people talk about, wasn't this the guy that was leaping tall buildings before? I like that kind of stuff. This is kind of neat, exploring him. So this was something that I was very worried about in their handling of Superman, is now something that I'm finding incredibly intriguing in Superman. What's your take on it, though? You're supposed, out of the two of us, the Superman guy, and are you as giddy as I am about Supes?
Oh, big time. And it was, I was worried about the marriage being, because I love that marriage, and we're going to get to see all those cool Lois and Clark moments. We're going to get to see, eventually down the line when Lois learns that Clark is Superman. So we're going to get those moments all over again. So I'm liking where it's going. I like seeing just how it is right now. I don't know how long I'm going to be. I don't know how long it's going to take me before I'm like, we got to have this. Come on, get them together. Because I started thinking about Smallville, and how when they first introduced Lois, I was like, yeah. And every time they had those glimmers of moments, I was like, yay. I kind of was giddy as a schoolboy. Just get, yay. Oh, cool. Well, look at that. And then finally we get the great marriage and everything that's going on, and just at the ending. And it was but that was, how many years did it take for that to play out? So we're looking at, easily, I'm going to say 10 years until we see Lois and Clark together again in the comic book. So I'm kind of excited to see, that develop and see that play out. And it's, this is definitely, has me excited and has me going, this is my Superman. This is the same guy. Yeah, he's got a little bit different look. There is a little bit different changes in his universe, but at his heart and his core of who he is, as Clark as well as Superman, he is that same guy. I love the fact that Clark Kent had to go and apologize to Lois, say, hey, I heard what you did. You did the right thing. I was wrong. I just wanted to make sure, I told you that. That's Clark's personality. He had to tell her that. And I thought, part of it is probably because of feelings he may have, but the other part of it is it's the right thing to do. And it's, what his character would drive him to actually do. And I love seeing that.
Part of the reason why we've had lengthy debates on Superman has been over our impression of what Superman is at his core and where he comes from. And to me, Superman's always been one of those, Superman just leaps into action. Superman, if there's a problem, Superman rushes in and solves it. That's what Superman does. He's Superman. That's whatever powers you give the guy. We're seeing this in Action Comics. We're seeing it here. This is a guy who looks, if he analyzes a situation, it's really just for the purpose of analyzing what he can do to help out, then does it. That's what Superman is. You talked about the changes in his universe. I got to talk about the uniform, because it's one of those things where I'm going to be honest with you. This uniform's growing on me. And let me talk about this. The interiors of the arts. We've got this breakdowns by George Perez on the inside and Jesus Marino. These two are working together on this. And then you've got colors by Brian Buccellato. And I got to tell you something. I like the interior coloring of Superman's suit better than I like it on the cover. Like, I like the cape a little bit darker. I like the suit a little bit darker. For this style of suit I'm talking about. What are your preferences, though? I'm not saying you have to agree with me. Do you like it better on the cover? I'm not putting anything down on the cover art. I like the cover art. I think it's beautiful artwork. I love George Perez's art. So you can just give me, I'll take pencil sketches of George Perez's art any day of the week. I just love looking at what the guy does. So I'm not saying it's bad art. I'm talking about we've got a different coloring. On the front, it's a lighter blue. There's more of a red to the cape. It's definitely a darker tone in the inside of the book all the way through, and that's consistent all the way through. So it's not just because, it's nighttime. It does lighten up a bit when we start seeing him, in fighting in flames and stuff like that. But for the most part, this is a darker look to it. What do you prefer? Do you have a preference?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't notice really a difference in the coloring.
Do you see it now?
Well, my issue's on the other side of my room.
Okay, so you haven't seen. I guess you haven't actually looked at it.
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, the interior for myself, the interior colors, I really, really enjoyed how it looked. I know some of that is he's darkened because it's nighttime outside, but I don't know. I think maybe it's just over time the suit's growing on me. The one other thing I just pulled it out and I'm looking at it. I have the advantage with it being on my app. I just kind of whipped it open because he had mentioned it in his voicemail. And one thing I liked was the distinction in how he wears his hair as Clark Kent and as Superman.
Yeah.
You know, there's a distinct difference. It's more messed up and covering his entire head. When Superman's got the part going on, little things like that I think just add to this whole, and the baggier clothes bit carries over from what was going on in Action Comics. Those are things that I really like because I think, you want to believe, like, there's a reason why people like Lois Lane aren't going to notice that this is Superman, and that was something that I really liked about that book.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's, again, we're seeing the Clark, we're seeing the characters that I enjoy and I wanted to see and I was worried I was going to lose. I didn't lose them. They're telling a little bit different stories. They're in different places in their life, but it's still the same people. It's still that same, I still get that cool moments, when, you see Superman doing what Superman does. And you see the Clark Kent moments. And Lois is, still Lois. Lois is still this great female who is a strong-willed, very assertive. When, the boss man wanted her to do one thing, she's like, no, I'm not going to put my people in danger. This is how I am. This is who I am.
Yeah.
This is the person you hired. And I loved seeing her stand up to the boss like that. She's not going to back down. And he was being a little smarmy I didn't think I hired a woman. Hey, you. And I love that.
Well, and the great part was she protected her people like a good leader while at the same time still getting the story.
Yeah.
So she did everything that she was going to do strategically, showing that she didn't compromise anything by protecting others, which really shows that she's got a moral code. I loved this. I thought this was really well done with Lois Lane, and I think it's really important in the Superman book to spotlight her because I think she's a terrific character, and I'm with you on that. That was something that I thought was a strength for her, was seeing that she has a moral code, because you want to believe that this is somebody, like Superman falls in love with this girl. He is already in love with her. I mean, we're seeing that in here. Why? Why would he pine after her? Well, we're seeing it there. That's somebody, there's a strength to her. There's something really cool about the character. And it's moments like that where she's running everything and she could be all business. It's all about her. It's all about, this is this Pulitzer Prize winning, reporter. And no, I can still do that without crossing those lines. It's just a matter of I'm smart enough, I'm clever enough that I can multitask and shift things around, so this is going to work. Loved that about Lois Lane in this book.
Oh, yeah, big time. It was funny, that ending sequence when he's listening in on the conversation with the super hearing. We know from the past readings on Superman that he's able to focus on one individual and keep a constant tabs on people. Mm-hmm. Makes me wonder, is he doing that with Lois, or is it just that one point in time and, he's not doing it all the time? Because if you're in love with somebody and she's in a relationship with somebody else, that would just eat you up.
How do you know he can do that?
Well, we've seen him do it in the past.
No. But what I'm saying is, how do you know he's that powerful yet?
We don't. I'm just
That's
saying.
What I'm saying. But you're saying. But you're saying that, like, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know that I agree with you that he can do that. I agree with you that it's a possibility he can do that. Yeah. But this is a Superman whose powers are still growing. Right. I don't know that he can do that. I don't know that he can focus on her like that if he has that ability.
Yeah, I'm not saying he can. I'm saying if he could. This is a what if he could kind of. This is off the page thinking again. That was the first thought that popped in my head is, what if, because that would be that would be painful.
Well, that's also, you got to question his moral code if he does that.
Yeah.
Because that's like, we're a super stalker. So, I don't want to see him doing that. One of the things that I'm finding intriguing about both books, First of all, in Action Comics, it's learning gradually what his power set's like there, and that we're seeing a Superman who hasn't reached those levels yet. And I like that. I'm into this whole following him get more powerful. But it's also in present day. I don't know how powerful he is right now. I don't know that I believe he's as powerful as he was before. I don't think this is the Superman that can do that. I believe he has super hearing. I don't know that he has that much control over it, or it's got that kind of range that it did before. I might be wrong. I like that I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, your speculation there could be spot on. So, I mean, there's that possibility that what you're saying, everything you're saying could be 110% the way it's going. And I know you're speculating. So I agree with you. That's a possibility. But I like that there's a part of me that thinks there's a real possibility that that's just not the case for him right now.
Oh, yeah.
And how cool is that?
And we can get more development and more out of him later on. And, yeah, there is an unknown factor to this. And it's that, in a way, you can get kind of jaded when you know a character so much and you've read so much about them that you know exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. Well, now we've taken that off the table. Everything is brand new again. Everything is fresh. We're going to get new stories. We're going to get him learning for the first time about this. And it's not an alternate universe. It's not a story arc that goes, well, we're going to jump back, in time. It's the current continuity that is going to explore this. And that's something that, I've really, as we've read these, number ones have come out, as I'm getting ready for the number twos to come out and start reading those, that's something that I'm really latching onto going, this is all new. This is something fresh. And maybe they're going to be repeats of stories. Maybe it's going to be repeats of stuff we've seen. But
oh God, I hope
there
not.
is that.
I hope
there
not.
is this whole freshness to it, and I'm really excited about that.
And I don't want repeats because, first of all, I think the creative teams that are on these books are far too clever for that. I think it's going to be all their own takes on things. And when I'm saying their own takes, I don't think we're going to see repetition. I think we're going to see them take things in new directions. I'm going to kind of disagree with you on one thing that you said. I don't think this was the only way to do that fresh thing. I don't think there ever comes a point where you can't tell something new about a character. We as people don't reach a point in time in our life where we're saying, like, you and I are both 40. We're at that point right now where, like, everybody knows everything about us and there's never something new to learn. We learn new stuff about each other all the time. Do you follow me?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think the same thing is true of characters. I think a clever writer can take a character that's been around forever that we think we know everything about and tell us something new about them. So I don't know that I necessarily agree that you have to, like, revamp and reboot a character in order to do that. I do think that it is one way to do it, and I think we're seeing a lot of effectiveness being done here. But I don't think Aquaman falls into that category, for example. And I think we both loved Aquaman. I don't feel like that's a character who we're seeing a new direction. We're seeing a new direction, a new status quo for the character, but this is not a character with a blank slate.
Right.
And Batman's, obviously we're seeing that. Green Lantern, obviously we're seeing that. I think, these are characters who still have all of their history, or at least a majority of the history that we've seen before with them. But clever writers are taking them and showing a new direction with them. So I think we're getting a little bit of A and B, and I like that. I like the mix of we're keeping rich history in some cases, and for other cases where we've been keeping the rich history and we're not getting the bang we were expecting, we're doing something new and fresh. And I think the feeling's been that Superman's a character that hasn't had the kind of readership demand that a character like Superman should, so they're going for this route. And a character like Superman should when he had the creative teams doing interesting stories with him for as long as they did. We're talking about years of interesting stories with Superman, where Superman should be one of those characters that's top tier. He should be neck and neck, I think, with Batman as far as sales, and Green Lantern as far as sales, and it's not working out that way always with the character. And I don't think it's because of lack of creative talent on the books. I just think that they needed to do something to get a buzz about the character, and sometimes you don't know what to do to get. And I think this relaunch was an interesting way to go about it with the character, because I think creatively Superman's enjoyed a lot of creative talent over the years, especially in recent years. I've really enjoyed what a lot of the characters. A lot of the creators have been doing with the character for since before we were doing the show. All-Star Western, which was one for me I was so glad to see. And it's one of those titles that I just hope people are giving a shot who maybe never read Jonah Hex before. I loved the use of Gates of Gotham in this, When they were going through the history, they didn't ignore Gates of Gotham. They brought in that miniseries and just quick little references to the fact, because it was being done in Gotham City, and how this was a place where you're seeing a Jonah Hex reacting differently. He's in a big city. This is not his environment. Behaving in a way that's a little bit more extreme to maintain his kind of MO and status quo, and which is important it's like a security blanket for Jonah Hex almost. I liked Arkham analyzing Jonah Hex.
Yes.
That was just super cool. I mean, there was something about seeing it that way. And I like that Jonah Hex doesn't like that. He doesn't like the guy. This is not a place he's comfortable with. Doesn't like having partners. Certainly doesn't want a shrink, poking around in his head and analyzing him like that. But I love that Arkham looks at this guy as a test subject, and seeing that kind of world, because Arkham's a creepy dude too.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, the Arkham Asylum, which is his house,
yeah.
in the Old West. It was a great use of Gotham as a setting, and you didn't lose Jonah Hex, and what makes this book so cool. So I'm hoping with that setting that, first of all, anybody who read Gates of Gotham should read this, because if you enjoyed that miniseries, there's a lot of that history being brought into this. This is kind of a side story that references a history of Gotham in it, and you're seeing Jonah Hex being forced to react to the history of Gotham here. They go to Mayor Cobblepot and stuff like that. I mean, just neat moments that, and Jonah Hex never feels out of place in any of this. And it's something that I thought was rich and enjoyable. Jonah Hex has remained one of my shortlist books, in its solo series prior to this. And this series, right out of the starting gate, is right back where it should be. I'm glad they gave it an issue number 1, because I'm hoping new people tried it out who'd never done it before. If you didn't, and you missed this book, you're missing one of the best written series that DC has going. I have no hesitation to saying that. I remember, way back when I was going through my top 5 lists, and I kept saying Jonah Hex was going to wind up in there. Jonah Hex remains in there with All-Star Western. This one, it's not one of those that I'm putting on my top 10. It's easily in my top 5. I would not drop Jonah Hex in a million years. And I'm saying All-Star Western is Jonah Hex. This is a continuation of Jonah Hex. Fresh starting point with it. What about for you? I know you jumped on the bandwagon of Jonah Hex late, but then you got into it. What did you think reading this issue out of the starting gate? Was this satisfying for you? You don't have to be in the same place I'm in with it. I'm curious to see where you're at.
I was going to play off and do a practical joke and, play off that I didn't like it and this and that. And mostly I was doing that just because I know my brother Bill is listening, and it would drive him nuts if I started, mocking or, not liking it. But I'm not actually going to do that to him this time, because this was a really cool story. And this is a really great Western in a big city. So you get that, we talked earlier about Aquaman being the fish out of water. Well, Jonah Hex is that same way, where this isn't his normal, MO. This isn't his normal layout, but he still was himself. He still had that same, the coolness that makes him cool was still there. And this was one of those, I was reading it, I was enjoying it, I was like, hoorah, outstanding. I was so glad that, I didn't lose the great, the good Jonah Hex stories.
And it's art by Moritat and written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, of course, they're a creative team who I will follow anything they do. Religiously, because they just seem to really get how to write the kind of comics that I enjoy, and this is just right out of the starting gate, just more of what I love. These guys, as long as they keep the stories coming, I'll keep reading their version of Jonah Hex.
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't know what was from the past stories is still in canon and what's still continuity, and it doesn't matter to me. This was the title that, not knowing exactly what's which one of his previous adventures, if any of them occurred, I didn't even remotely enter my head. I was just so into getting a cool Jonah Hex story, getting a good, Western story, getting a good, just this great story that any possible, the side thoughts that I had with all the other series were completely out of my head. I was just focusing on what I was reading, what I was enjoying.
He also mentioned Teen Titans #1, which was a series I shared his worry about Teen Titans #1. And Tim Drake was really my focal point on that issue, so his love for Tim Drake on the whole thing I think was terrific. I saw the wing bit in the previews. Seeing it in play in the book just added more excitement to it.
Yes.
And the wings were the part that I hated the most. When I saw I'm like, really? They're going to give him wings? But then when you see them, that they're tech gadgets, and the way that they kind of spread out from his back, it fit, not like a la Blue Beetle or anything, which I love Blue Beetle, but I don't want to see that from Tim Drake. It is a tech item, that he wears like a backpack kind of thing. I loved how that all played out. I love the look for him. We got this ending with Superboy, where Superboy is going to be brought in, but his first meeting with Wonder Girl I thought was terrific. I'm curious to see what she's like too.
Yeah.
This new version of Wonder Girl. I know they're trying to give her kind of her own identity, but you've got to, in this series, one of the longest running characters the longest running character in this book actually is Tim Drake. And he's a very important character to me. It's clear from Batman and Robin's issue that this is the same Tim Drake that we've seen all along. So you've got to deliver a Tim Drake for me, especially if you're not going to have Tim Drake in his own solo series.
Yeah.
That I feel like I'm getting my Tim Drake fix in this book. And first issue out, I did. I don't know, what was your take? Because, I've loved Tim since Lonely Place of Dying. So is this your Tim?
Oh, definitely. This is definitely the Tim Drake I wanted, and was really excited to see him and just how he was playing out. And I thought the costume, from the get-go was kind of cool. I like that they were really doing something different than the other Bat family. So, and then seeing it actually in action, I was like, yeah, this is neat. And it had that same. One of the cool things I liked about the Justice League was that they didn't introduce all the characters at once. They're doing, bits here, and they're slowly adding them along. And I like that they did the same thing with Titans. You really got to focus on Tim. You really got to focus, on Wonder Girl. It's, we got an introduction of, Superboy. So they're laying out the people, and it's, a nice build going through the first story arc, and then, story arc plus, but we're also getting indicators who else is going to be on the team, just some other teases, and I like seeing that. I thought this was okay. This is something nice. This is something good. This is a great Teen Titans story. This was a really cool usage of Tim and Bart. Even he was a fun, he was being Bart, and it's I was enjoying this.
I'm curious to see what Bart's backstory is.
Yeah.
How much of that's intact or what they're doing with him. He felt like, a fun, loving Kid Flash, which I want to, see from Bart. I'm anxious to see how much of that, how much of that remains intact. But here's a question I have. What is Story Arc Plus? You said through this Story Arc Plus. What the heck is Story Arc Plus?
well, Story Arc Plus is a couple things.
Okay.
One, Story Arc Plus is first, second, third story arcs. But It's also the story arc that happens inside my head. You got that plus, the extra. Now the rest of the story where I'm, thinking off page. And this is definitely a team that I'm already thinking off page on, and it's, it's my personal enjoyment. It's one of the things that, when I'm really passionate about a story, I immediately start thinking off page. And Teen Titans, I started thinking off page right away. So I'm really pumped, and I'm excited, and I'm comfortable. And I was so terrified that I was going to lose my Tim. I didn't. I'm like, yes, this is what I wanted. Thank you.
I was very worried about this book, so I walked in with fears about this book. Tim Drake it's funny how it's got to be the Batman guy in me, that's loved Tim since his introduction, that I'm like, oh God, we can't lose Tim Drake, please don't ruin that character. And to see that we're not getting that ruining of the character here, that, this is clearly, keeping him at his foundations of what makes him cool. Part of all this is something that was really, really important to me. I was going to make some crack when you were doing your story arc. It's the story that goes on in my head. I was going to, do the whole, it's your head's a scary place, I don't want to be there kind of thing. But I'm not going to take anything away from that, because in all honesty, amen to what you were saying about how your favorite storylines are the ones where you go beyond the page. You do start thinking in your head, because we talk about that a lot of times on the show, the things we're thinking about the characters when we're, the thoughts, feelings, and ideas of the characters that are occurring off the page between the panels and stuff like that. And that occurs in your favorite books. And this was one out of the starting gate. I'm like, wow. Especially after I thought the last Titans run was really stellar. I really enjoyed what Nicholas Scott and J.T. Crewell were doing. So this team had a lot to live up to. And first issue in, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. And Tim Drake is my focus right now. So my enjoyment for everybody listening right now is really on the handling of Tim Drake. I don't know enough about Wonder Girl to feel that way. Don't know enough about Kid Flash to feel that way. Or Superboy. It's Superboy in his first issue. We got kind of an idea of where he's heading. But, we still don't know enough yet about him. But Tim Drake, really, really important character you need us to have that one. Yeah. I think, we talked about this with Red Hood and the Outlaws before. You need certain characters that you can latch onto and have confidence in if they're going to keep you reading the next issue. Tim Drake's got me reading the next issue of this without hesitation.
Yeah. So. And Bart is the impulse feel to him.
Yeah.
He has that same, I loved when he ran in there and he created a backdraft and he's like, oh yeah, oops, bam. I like seeing the fact that yes, he is the impulse. I enjoyed seeing that nature of him, and I'm going to be curious to see his character grow and develop and mature in this title.
We'll talk quickly about Green Lantern: The New Guardians because he brought that one up. I definitely want to do a cover to cover of that book. As we go through, just to talk about. It's probably going to be issue 2. But it's one of those books that I want to talk about. Why Kyle with the rings is one of the questions that I have. I really enjoyed the first issue. I'm intrigued by the fact that all these rings are being drawn to Kyle. Why him? What is going on here as these rings are being collected? What does the New Guardians thing mean? These are questions that are running through my head, and I think it's really important in the first issue to get me hooked into the mystery of this series. I love the focus on Kyle in the beginning. I was really worried that we're starting at ground zero with Kyle. We're not. We were just kind of doing, an introduction into...
A flashback.
Yeah, and really how Kyle was chosen. I think, if anything, the flashback kind of stepped up Kyle's, the way Kyle was chosen. Yeah. And made it seem more like, Kyle is truly one of these Green Lanterns. He really is a selected one who's being chosen because of what he brings to the table. And I love Kyle, so I'm glad to see him getting this kind of spotlight focus in this series. It's one that I enjoyed. But that's the mystery of the rings really has me intrigued on this one. Yeah. And why are they being taken from specific ones? For what purpose? Where is it going? So each corps is losing somebody over these rings being directed to Kyle. And who are going to be the replacements?
Yeah, it's the whole green universe is really fun and exciting, and it's a good thing to do. And I'm glad that Kyle has his place in the universe, and we didn't lose him. But we're also, everybody's got their seat at the table, and there's something for all the Green Lantern fans. And this isn't just going to be a Kyle story, but it is going to be the colors, and we're going to see something else. And it's, it's definitely laid down a really cool. We got something for you coming out of the gate, and it was one of those issues where I was enjoying what I was reading, but as it progressed by the end there, I was really excited for issue 2 of that series, just because it entertained me, but it laid down some great groundwork for the next issue.
Thinking off the page on that one and where it could be potentially heading, do you see? Is the New Guardians meaning that they're going to be some kind of separate entity from the Guardians that we currently have? Or are they going to eventually possibly be a replacement for the Guardians, who we're seeing there's a lot of turmoil with the Guardians in Green Lantern? So is this going to be something where this group is either going to have to set them straight, or are they going to overtake them? Or is it not going to go in that direction? What are you thinking? Do you have any speculation on that? Was that something even going through your head as this was going on? Because I am looking at what's going on in the Guardians on the regular Green Lantern title.
Right. I was definitely thinking this is something that either a United Nations type of organization where it's all of the colors, coming together so that they can work together, or these are going to be the new Guardians. Mm-hmm. They're going to get, and to have new Guardians, you have to get rid of the old Guardians. And I can see I was thinking maybe we're going to see something with the entities, playing out, and maybe each one of those will be, get the new entity, or I'm not sure. But I'm definitely thinking this group that we're seeing coming together at the end of the first issue is going to play out throughout the series. Yes, it's going to be Kyle is going to be there, but I don't think he's going to be by himself. This is definitely going to be a group dynamic.
Okay. Yeah, good book.
You won't get away from me this time, Buster.
It's funny how sometimes a show voicemail will change a direction the podcast is going to go. We were planning on doing Fury of Firestorm either next week or the week after, and this phone call led us to kind of impromptu pull out both of our issues and start chatting about it. So hopefully you enjoy this chat about Fury of Firestorm. I want to remind everyone that our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. Your opinions are always welcome, and they add a little flavor to the podcast, so please feel free to call in anytime.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Scott from Simpsonville, South Carolina. I wanted to throw in my 2 cents about the 52 relaunch and the reboots. I'm really enjoying all the books more so than I really thought I would. I was a little hesitant there when they made the announcement initially, as I think you guys were also, but it's turned out to be really, really a good, enjoyable experience. I really enjoyed most of them. You know, and you guys, one thing I love about your podcast, and I think people have mentioned this several times, is how positive you guys are and just how much energy and enthusiasm you have toward, comics, and you're just so positive about everything. It comes through the iPod, and it's infectious, so I really appreciate that. But I have to throw my 2 cents in on 2 books that I was really disappointed about, and I wanted to see, get your guys' opinions about it and see what you felt, how you felt about them. And you may have already discussed this. I'm a couple episodes behind, but Red Hood and the Outlaws. It started out really good. I love the characters, Roy and Jason and Starfire. I love all those characters. But it started out great with the prison break and all that. Then, I didn't even mind, and there was a big controversy about Starfire and all the I guess the DNA shots and all that. And that didn't bother me. I mean, I've been reading, her since she first appeared in 1980 in New Teen Titans. So she's always been a sensual character and a sexual character. I think even one of the first appearances she made, she kissed Robin to be able to speak the English language. So, I mean, that's her. That's her character. And that didn't bother me. But the whole business with her forgetting her teammates and just saying, okay, yeah, I slept with, the first Robin, I slept with this other Robin, and, now let's you and me, Roy, hit the sack. So that whole thing just, I couldn't believe it. I mean, my jaw dropped out when I read that. I just did not like that at all. And maybe they're going to explain that in the future issues where it's going to make sense, but I just don't see how they're going to be able to do it. That it's going to make any sense with that character. And I realize it's a different character, that, there's been changes and all that, but to go from the character she was in all these years to go to this character now, if that holds up, if they're going to continue down that path, I don't see myself buying that book. Like I said, I'm going to give it a couple issues, but I don't think I can keep reading that character that way. And I wonder what George Perez and Marv Wolfman think about the way they're handling that, because they're co-creators of that character. So I'm just curious as how you guys felt about that twist on the character. The other thing was Firestorm, Fury of the Firestorm, or the new Firestorm book. I don't know, I didn't care for it either. I read it 2 times, and I'm a big Firestorm fan, always have been, but I don't know, there was just something about it that just, I love Gail Simone, I just like you guys. I love everything she's done to this point, and I'm going to get issues just, see how they flesh these characters out. But I don't this whole issue with the Jason being an angry African American.
Scott's call died out here. I'm not sure if it cut off on his end or what happened. He actually called back, so I'm going to put his callback on there, but it's cut off during his Firestorm commentary, so I don't know if there was more he wanted to say. So, Scott, if you're listening to this, please feel free to call back and tell us more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Firestorm and what it was, because it'd be interesting as you said you're going to give it a couple issues, if over time as the story gets fleshed out and you get to know the characters more, if your feelings change on it. Because with a lot of these titles, we're dealing with the first issue where, the writers and artists are just getting a chance to set up what's going on for the character. So I'm really curious to see, like you said, if after a couple issues your mind changes or not. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the book and why, because that's always intriguing to me to hear what's driving that. So I definitely want to hear that commentary so we can talk about that.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Scott. We got cut off there. I was just going to say that I really enjoyed Jim's little adventure to the comic shops trying to find all the books that he was missing, even though they were still coming. He was still looking for them before his order came in. So I thought that was a really enjoyable listen, and may have a spin-off podcast there, Jim. So I'd love to hear some more adventures of your comic search. You guys take care, and talk to you soon. Thanks.
And Scott, do feel free to call back too with your Firestorm comments, because that's where you got cut off. So we didn't get the end of where you were going with Firestorm. Jim and I will talk about obviously Firestorm a little bit in a couple seconds. But Jim, what do you think about your spinoff podcast?
Hey, you know what? You may get some more. Jim's adventures and his travels, because I will be at the New York Comic Con, and I'm planning on bringing a portable recorder, so you may get some other adventures, and that definitely, hunting down the comics was a fun time.
Wait, hold on. Is this the same portable recorder from your last trip you never gave me back?
Exactly. So I'm not making promises, but I think I'm hoping at the convention I'll be able to. I'll feel more comfortable doing it and actually doing something with it. I started to on recording on the vacation, but usually when I had the free time, I was too exhausted and I wasn't carrying with me all the time. I'm thinking at the con, I carry it on me so that way, as inspiration or the moment hits me, I can pull it out and drop a quick recording down. Hopefully.
Well, I think he was looking forward to your adventures going to the comic shop. So in order for like what he wants to work, you'd have to continue going to the comic shop every week.
Yeah, you know what? That's not going to happen. I really do like the service we get from DCBS. So that was fun doing it, but it stopped with the first issue because that was a lot of work. Wednesday. It was a little bit easier when I started going midday Wednesday, right around noon, to the one West Side shop. Mm-hmm. But even that was still a little bit of work to get that done, and so I'm not continuing on my little adventure for issue 2s. I'm just getting them in the through the mail and all that.
Through DCB service.
Yeah, and through the service.
Our buddy Chris Kendall, he does a pull list at the comic shop that he's at, and I do encourage people to do. First of all, obviously our show sponsor, DCBService.com, is incredible. A pull lists, though, are a great way through a local comic shop to also get your comics. But DCB Service has been terrific for us, and I'm with you on that. I'm going through them digitally. You're going through them through the mail. And I can't recommend their service enough. Everything gets pristine, and as long as I keep getting everything pristine from in my case, I'm getting everything digitally from them now. That's their service isn't. Well, I shouldn't say that. No, I'm buying a lot of. I just got the hardcover collection, Dark Tower, from DCB Service, and I'm getting a lot through InStockTrades.com, going through the service that way to get my hardcover collections and stuff. But they had an omnibus of the Dark Tower series.
Ooh.
I couldn't pass up. 2 huge books in this really cool slipcase, and I couldn't resist stuff like that. And I got the Commandy omnibus. Yeah. Commandy, The Last Boy on Earth by Jack Kirby, Volume 1. I guess there's going to be more than one volume of that. I haven't had a chance to read that yet, but I've been getting those Kirby books as they've been coming out ever since the Fourth World Omnibus, because I haven't read a lot of that material. Commandy's one I have not read at all. I think I read an issue of Commandy when I was a kid, and I liked it. I just never, it was one of those budget-wise, I never had the chance to read it, so those hardcover collections are very welcome for me, and I got that one from them as well. So I love collected editions from them. So besides digital, I'm still getting like hardcovers and stuff like that, which is terrific. So Firestorm, let's talk a little bit. What did you like? I don't think you read any Firestorm series, have you?
Not really. I picked up the trades. Yeah, I did pick up the one trade and read it, and I thought it was kind of cool. But I have very, very little dealings with Firestorm. The brightest day was my dealings with him. So it's I'm very new to the character. So going into this, I had some knowledge and some background of the character, and I kind of knew who all the players were. So I had a comfort level with him, but I went into this, pretty much fresh and clean. And I got to tell you, I really liked the story.
Oh, I did too, yeah.
For me, it was more than just, a hero story. It was the character behind their personalities. They had this one initial issue to kind of let us know their personality quirks and their own characterizations, and I think we got a good exposure to it. As the series fleshes out, as time goes on, we'll get a little bit deeper into who they are. But this was cool action moments up front. There was enough adventure, enough, mystery going on to keep you interested, and then they're building who is Firestorm, and ending off with that, this is Fury. I'm like, whoa, what the heck's going on here? This is kind of curious.
One thing I really liked about the first issue of this is it dealt with some real-world social commentary. A lot of times nowadays, in our, it's funny, we go back to the blogging society. Obviously we podcast, we have a forum, we blog, however you want to call it. We fit into that category. But I do think a lot of times people make assumptions on other people's beliefs and preferences and, where they're coming from by not just by what they interact with, but what they don't interact with. And that includes people, places, and things. A lot of assumptions get made very, very quickly about people without giving them a chance. And I think this was something we see Jason and Ronnie's initial interactions. A lot of their dealings are misunderstandings of who they are because of lack of exposure. And we're seeing them, that's really where a lot of their conflict comes from. They haven't had that exposure, so the two of them are being forced into a situation where really they're kind of crossing lines with each other. And, like Jason does some things that I think are, I get why he feels that way about Ronnie, because of things that he's been excluded from. Mm-hmm. But in many ways, he's making some presumptions about Ronnie that are unfair. Ronnie's going home and asking those questions at home. And the second you have to ask those questions, I think it's clear that your issue isn't that you are racist or, that you don't have those feelings for people. It's that you haven't had exposure. And there's a huge difference between choosing to not have exposure and not having exposure. And I loved that Ronnie didn't ignore completely what Jason was saying. He went back and started questioning himself, like, hey, is this a part of me? And I think it's important because I liked both characters in this. I didn't have an issue at all with Jason Rush asking the questions he was asking. I think nowadays we're too afraid to ask those questions. You know what I mean? Like, why not bring it up? Let's talk about it. All right, let's go there. And let's let these two guys hash it out together. I think it's something that's cool. I think too often nowadays we're afraid to talk about the topic, and if we talk about it, we've got to be so politically correct about it that, we can't. This was just in your face, these two guys going at it, talking about their issues with each other, what they believe about each other, the assumptions they're making. Because Ronnie's making just as many assumptions about Jason as Jason's making about Ronnie. And I love that about the two because I felt like it was this natural tete-a-tete with these two characters. It was clear that this was launching these two on Ground Zero. I thought it was really cool that, do you think that Jason obviously knows about the Firestorm thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's clear because it's something experimental for Martin Stein, that he didn't know the effect that it would have on Ronnie and what it would have on the others around them. Because everyone else vanished, right?
Well, some of them vanished, some of them got transformed, and I think some of them were just out of the blast radius. So there was definitely an unknown factor to it. You can see a couple people flying back. I think there's a couple got vaporized, just by the pure energy.
The hand coming out of the ground, right? Well, is that the girl?
Well, the blue hand coming out of the ground, that's one of the bad guys.
But when the two of them are forming, that hand that's coming out of the ground, is that the blue hand, like in between the two of them coming out of the ground?
So that's some of the energy got transferred into the blue hand, which is the one person.
But what do you think happened to the other people? Because you saw the one transform to the ground. Did they all go through that problem?
No, because you look at it, the female friend of Jason, you see her at the end. Mm-hmm. The one guy gets shot and he's dead.
Trev.
Trev is shot and dead. So all that's left is that female bad guy who shot Trev. She's blue, and then her boyfriend, who's the other bad guy, is the guy there. That's that final. Okay, dig her out. She's alive. Dig her out. Let's see what we got going on here.
And the girl that
I
was
think everybody's
the girl
accounted for.
Yeah, the girl that was the friend of theirs.
You see her at the end.
Right,
She's the one who
right.
says, if Fury introduces himself to.
Right, exactly. Which was very polite of him.
Yes.
Yeah, and this artwork, this is the one from, I believe it's the artwork from Legion of the Superheroes, right? Cinar? Isn't that the one who was doing Legion before? Which I really like the artwork. I loved in the beginning, jumping back, because we jumped ahead to Ronnie and Jason interacting. But I love that if you've got this kind of power being experimented with, in a day and age of getting secrets and gaining secrets to try and get an edge, there would be people who stand to profit from this. And in a variety of different ways, whether it's, as terrorists, to sell it on the black market, to whatever, or to use it yourself, you would be going after any kind of weaponry, any kind of chemical technology, whatever, that could do that. So you see these guys that are willing to kill families to do that, but not even kill. I mean, they killed everyone, right? The kids were dead. Didn't everybody die?
Oh, yeah. No witnesses, no nothing.
Right.
This is pure bad guys, government gone wrong, secret black ops agencies. We're not exactly sure who they are, but they, this is what they do. You want a clean, path behind you. And it's, in a way, when I was sitting there and you see just the cold and calculated behind them, it's not an evil thing. It's just how it has to be. It's a lack of emotions, but then you kind of see them playing around a little bit with them and kind of getting a little pleasure out of it. So there is a little bit of that evilness to them. So they're characters where I think as time goes on, we're going to ask ourselves probably multiple times, are they pure evil? Are they just... is this the way they see things have to be done? Do they not see the black and white? They only, is it only bam crisp? This is how it's got to be, clean, no exceptions. So it's, again, the two main characters that are Firestorm is going to be kind of a neat, twist of those two dealing with each other. But I'm assuming this is going to be a recurring villain cast.
Sure. That
this agency is going to be around, whether it's directly or indirectly going after the Firestorm Matrix. So so I'm definitely want to see where that plays out and see who they are. It's, again, I like seeing a good villain team with this. You got inner turmoil between the team, but you also got external turmoil. You got a lot of areas where this can go.
I love this page where, now that wasn't so hard, was it? And one thing I loved about it is don't show it on screen. You don't need to. Some of that stuff works really well off camera. Let my mind go there. Yeah. Just as horrifying. I like that whole, we do the Hitchcock reference all the time, but I think sometimes just let my head do that. Especially when you're dealing with a little kid on there. I'm glad they went there because this established for, without being so graphic about it, because it established for me just really how heartless and cold they are, because the reaction of this, the kid was supposed to be a terrorist, Tobias. We want it to look dirty. Better take out the block, I think. They're willing to, without remorse, destroy the block.
Yeah.
These guys are just very matter-of-factly. And then I love the bit, God, I'm hungry. Can I bum a knife here? And the knife she tries to
hand him is the bloody knife, yeah.
Like, really, Lauren? Really? This is such a great bit there. And she's laughing about it. These guys are, finding humor in all this. So these are people we're knowing right now, professionals. They've done this many, many times. There's no remorse. The comfort level is there. I don't see these as being people that are losing sleep at night over anything that they do, which is interesting in establishing this. So, if you encounter them, your odds of survival are horrid. We see them torturing people later to get the information about Stein and his experiments. And when this, thing gets pulled up there and you start to see that there have been other firestorms, is that what we're seeing in that, throughout history? Is that what these are?
Yeah, or just other people who've experimented with it. That was something I didn't know if those were currently around or those were in the past that had been removed.
Yeah, I don't know. Or just other experiments with it. I think it's great. It was really cool to see that. I loved the designs of those costumes because they were nice nods to like the past of the character while, giving it kind of this this feeling of maybe that the costumes match personalities of the characters or something as they go on. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with that. Firestorm for me was always something. I remember when the character debuted. I remember his initial comics, and I remember picking it up because he looked interesting. I mean, you saw him on the cover. So I did pick up Firestorm when it first came out in the late 70s. And then he became part of the Justice League. And it was one of those, I didn't read all of the issues of Firestorm because I didn't have a budget for that. I was a regular Justice League reader, though, and when he became a part of the Justice League of America, I really got to enjoy that character as a part of the Justice League, and I really dug the character, Ronnie Raymond character of Firestorm. Remember when my first convention sketch ever was when Jamal Igle was on Firestorm. I liked the character of Jason Rush so much and what they were doing with Firestorm that I really wanted, a sketch of the character, something that I've got it hanging on my wall. I got it framed. It was on the back of a comic backing board. An idea I got from Brian Deemer from Comic Geek Speak, who was saying, hey, if you're at a convention, this is archival quality. And he's right. It looks fantastic. So this idea of these two characters splitting, and this was something that surprised Jason. He didn't expect this. He didn't expect this to affect him and Ronnie. So I'm going to be curious to see what it's like when they switch into the Matrix now. Is it always going to be these two both having powers? And are their powers the same? Because we don't know that.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And here's the thing that I didn't notice was the title of it until the issue came out. It's The Fury of Firestorm, The Nuclear Men. I just, when it was coming out, I always thought it was just the Nuclear Man like it was before. It's plural there.
Oh, I didn't notice that either. Good catch. I guess I was always focused on the Fury of Firestorm, and I was looking at the great artwork that I never
exactly. I never noticed it until I actually had the issue in front of me, and it kind of makes sense because you look at the cover. There's the two of them in their costume, and Fury's in the middle of them. So I'm like, wow, this is kind of interesting. I want to know, and I want to know the power sets. I want to see where it's going to play out, and I like the just this initial gutter reaction these two have towards each other. But in a way, you can see that they have a lot of common ground, that they do, commonalities that as time it can play out. But this initial gut reaction, this initial encounter between the two of them, they're butting heads. They're firing off at each other. You got the jock and the jock hater. You got the intellect and the guy, he's not that bright, but you know what? He can throw a football, so he's gonna get the full ride. He's gonna get that, that college dream that Jason wants. Ronnie's gonna get it, and Jason's got to struggle to get it. So there's gonna be that resentment, and there's gonna be that little bits where they're gonna push each other's buttons. And so I want to see that interaction. I want to see the play out between the two of them, but I also want to see some cool comic book stuff. And we're getting, we got a great glimpse of that. We got these cool bad guys, we got some massive power, and we got some question going on. What exactly is Firestorm? Who are they? Where do they come from? And that stuff, this first story arc, I'm hoping we'll get some pretty good play out. There'll still be some mystery involved because you never really learn everything, but we're still going to get a comfort in who they are, and I'm really looking forward to it. This was one of those titles where I was looking forward to it because of the creative team, and now that I'm into it, I'm like, yes, this is meeting my my curiosities, my expectations. This is a lock-in for me, issue 2+.
Now, here's my... you and your pluses. Issue 2+. Everything plus. This page with Jason talking to Ronnie. Ronnie, you're experiencing a kind of shock. Stay focused. You could become unstable. You'll kill us all. Do you understand? Now, Ronnie's reaction where he's having the outburst there, the tantrum, don't talk to me like I'm a child. You don't get to do that to me, not now. That sequence of what happens right there, is that what caused Fury? Because that flume afterwards, was it the unstable nature of him? So what happens during that merger? It was the two of them merging, right? Because the guys are gone forever, Sweet Cheeks, say hello to Fury. So is this a merging of them together that causes Fury? Meaning that it's both of their personalities combined that cause Fury? Or are they in the background, a la what we've seen with Firestorm in the past, where they're, this is like a Death Storm kind of thing, where they're in the back and they can't control Fury? I'm curious there's a lot of questions that I have about Fury and what exactly Fury is, and I'm not necessarily saying I have a preference on any of that. I'm curious. I mean, like, I actually cared enough that I want to know what Fury's all about, what causes Fury. I like that's you talk about issue 2+, steal one from you. What has me interested in the next issue is I want to know more. What's the deal with Fury? I loved this issue. I loved all the build up to it. I like the idea that these are guys that are going to be on the run for a lot of reasons. Are Ronnie and Jason going to be able to go back to a normal life, or now because of what's happened, are these guys going to have to be on the run to a certain level because they're being hunted because of the Firestorm Matrix? And I don't know. I'm excited for the next issue because of these characters. I like there's a conflict between the two that feels real world right now. And I want to see. A lot of times we learn a lot through comics and through superhero characters about sometimes just how to get along when kind of the stupid issues of us being slightly different come into play. And I love that they're going there with this. I think it's kind of cool because I felt like both characters were wrong in their conflict in their own ways. And I would love to see what will bring them together. You know what I mean? And what they'll learn about themselves and each other. And I love that both characters were affected by how they were treating each other. You know what I mean? It wasn't just an issue of them lashing out at each other. They both had to reflect on the after effects of that, and was the other person right about them? And I think too often we don't do that as people. When we make mistakes in the way we interact with others, especially when we don't understand things or we don't have a background in situations. And that's what's happening here. It's dealing with ignorance. Ignorance is really a lot of what goes on in society nowadays. People don't bother they make assumptions before they bother to learn. And that's what happened here. I don't know. I thought this book got really deep. Yep. And so I was in on this one. So I would actually love to hear from Scott, like, what didn't he like? Because he started to go there. And I'm sorry, Scott, you got cut off. So please call back because I'd love to hear more of what you didn't like about this, because I'm like, I didn't get that experience at all. I thought that everything, because he started to talk about Jason Rush's character, I'm like, no, I liked what Jason was doing in this. Now I don't want to see that being throughout the whole series. I want to see both characters evolve, Jason and Ronnie. But I think that's kind of cool. You've got two guys in a real world conflict that I think matches a lot of the nonsense that goes on in society nowadays. I think that's very real. And I want to see them go together because I think that's something we can all learn from.
Yeah, I got to tell you, one of the things, though, as we're saying how much we're loving the story, the artwork is another a great piece of it. And just, just the broad, bright coloring that you're getting from a Firestorm, you got to have that. It's the fire. So you got your bright reds, your yellows, your orange kind of mixing and matching and just kind of flowing through each other. You have that, living quality that fire has. We're seeing that from the characters as the energy is coming off them. I thought that was great, but also just background details. When Fury explodes on the scene, there's some damage done to the school. So you see some background problems and breakage and just structural damage, and then just even like in the background, some of the signs that are up in the high school, and just all these just general attention to detail was stuff that I was just like, second and third read through, I was seeing these stuff going, and it's little stuff, but I was just like, yeah, that's cool. I'm glad they put that so and so for for senior prom, or this person for that, and go Vikings and go this. And I was like, okay, yeah, I like seeing all that, just that attention to the background details.
You know what page I really love the coloring on, which is kind of a strange page, because it's not one of the ones where, you got a ton of action going on. It's a lot of explanation. Jason comes, it's who are they, what do they want? And I can't explain that. You wouldn't understand. I'm going to my locker, get her out of here. Throughout that whole page, all the panels that are in there, where Ronnie's telling them, you know something, because he does. He knows everything that's going on here, and he's not revealing it to them, and it's about Snine. And he's explaining everything in that page. The coloring of the characters throughout that entire sequence, and I'm talking about like shading from light sources. When he's looking into the locker to when he's out of the locker, and you see shadows on the side of Jason's face, shadows on the side of Ronnie's shirt that match. Yeah. Like the way the lights, I can tell that we're like the light sources in like in a certain direction. It's little stuff like that, from the shading of their clothes straight on through to I don't know. There's shadows, behind Jason. I appreciate that. I know that comes from a combination of the penciling, but also the color work that was done in this book. And there was a page that stood out for me. And the reason why I'm saying it's odd, because usually that's an action page that happens for me. And it was really during this conversation that I was noticing, I'm like, wow, it's really cool use of a combination of penciling and color work to deliver an atmosphere of shadows and lighting and light sourcing. And I appreciate that because it gave me a real world feel of this school. And I like environments. I like when environments are brought to life and environments interact with the drawings of the characters. And it's such an odd page, but it really stood out for me as just being a sharp-looking page. And where you could otherwise say that would be a page that they would leave boring because the action wasn't happening. But I thought it was a pivotal page because Jason's explaining a lot there. So you want to have people's eyes drawn to that page and what's going on in that moment because, I was like glued to, okay, when's it going to happen and how's it going to happen? I want to see some Firestorm. And I loved how that came about. So that was just a surprising page for me that stood out. But yeah, this is a satisfying book I'm a Firestorm fan, and this one, really going back to the starting gate with this character is really working for him. And I was afraid of that too because it's a character that I've had such a rich history that I've enjoyed, and it's a character that I think they really nailed. Like, this is what a new era Firestorm should be like, without throwing it out the window. Nice nods to the history of the character by bringing in Stein as the one who created, and not leaving out Ronnie or Jason. Because I think It would have been a mistake to leave out either of the characters, because I think there's two sets of fans you're appealing to in that. I do think I understand what Scott was saying in the sense that I think he was probably a little bit worried about the relationship between Ronnie and Jason and that conflict being something that maybe he didn't like, the way that the two were having the conflict. But I actually like the initial conflict between the two. Will they find peace with each other? Can they become friends? How do you when you start off so viciously with each other? And what does it mean if they don't?
And you think about, with what we saw in Brightest Day between the two of them. Mm-hmm. How Ronnie killed, Jason's girl, and how he did it, and everything that happened there, and just the conflict they had in the beginning of that, it's still playing out. And by the end of that series, they had gotten their groove and they started understanding each other. So I think we're going to see that same level of maturity. We're going to see the understanding between the two of them, and I don't know if we're going to get the traditional one Firestorm, or if it's going to be two Firestorms now. If there's going to be the two of them, from now on, and whenever they need to merge, they merge and form Fury, and maybe they'll figure out a way to control Fury, or maybe it'll be kind of like a Hulk thing where they can't completely control, but they kind of can steer and manipulate.
It'd be interesting to see if Fury comes about at times where, I like this, where you don't want Fury to come about. What does that mean? I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities in what they've set up here. And then, like you said earlier, are the other Firestorms still around? What was on the monitor there? That was stuff I was insanely curious about.
It looked to me like they are actually out there and active, but they're under control by this agency. Because they said an unauthorized, how much damage an unauthorized Firestorm protocol can cause,
right?
And so I think they have them, but they're under control. They're in their own people, or however they're manipulating and controlling the factors. They have them under control. This Firestorm isn't under their control, and that's what they wanted.
Well, here's a question. Do they need that reaction to become Firestorm? Remember that Jason pulled that thing out of there? Yeah. Like, what if those guys on the monitor can't become Firestorm anymore unless they have access to what Jason had?
Yeah. And I'm thinking, the only way is if they were to take it and put it back into the bottle, put the genie back in the bottle, if you will.
Yeah. And if that's possible, we don't know what the reaction exactly was yet. So is it something you can put back in? What if you can't?
Well, here's my thinking that you may be able to, and it's because Jason, knew how to trigger it. And even before he triggered it, you kind of saw the redness in his eyes, and he's like, yeah, just one word, Firestorm. And he activated it. So and plus when he was fighting Ronnie, he was able to actually make the ground come up and turn into fists and grab his legs and start to try to hold him back, and control him. So Jason already had an understanding of the powers. So I'm thinking he's actually activated the powers before, but never really used them.
Or he's seen it.
Yeah, or he's seen it, or there's something. So I'm thinking there's a way that he can actually, maybe put it back in the bottle, maybe contain it again, or I don't know.
It's a cool book. It's Ethan Van Sciver and Gail Simone are the co-plotters on it. Gail Simone's the writer on it. Is that how it worked? I think.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling out my issue to see that. Yeah. And I actually, they're doing a great job with it. It's an interesting book so far. It's funny with a lot of these books. With the issue number ones, you talked about the arcs a lot. We got to see where these books are going in their arcs. It's. We're just getting some real development. We just saw them become Firestorm for the first time. We saw Fury for the first time. We don't know what any of that means. And I think you really need to see some of that in order to see how you feel about the series and the direction it's going in. So I'm curious to see where it goes.
Oh, no, you don't!
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Jamie Dunst, JD74 on the board, and came calling to talk about some comics. I wanted to start off with All-Star Western. This was a book that I knew I wanted to try out the first issue on, and I was very happy I did. Seeing Jonah Hex in this, Gotham City was a really interesting story, and I liked his team up with Jeremiah Arkham, and I liked how you got Jeremiah kind of explaining from his standpoint who Jonah Hex is as they're solving this mystery. And I think the last page, I think every last page I've seen so far has been really good and really makes me intrigued for the next issue. Another one I checked out was Aquaman, which I knew I was going to like because it's Jeff Johns and Yvonne Hayes for the creative team, but I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy this. It was a very kind of lighthearted story where you get to kind of see how people see Aquaman, which I thought was kind of funny. The last page, again, very interesting. Next one was Teen Titans, which I was much happier with this than I thought I was going to be. I think they really, the writer really got Tim Drake, and Wonder Girl seems rather different, but maybe in a good way. I'm not really sure, but this was some really good writing for Teen Titans, and I'm curious to see where that's going to go. The next one is Green Lantern, The New Guardians. I liked it. Wasn't crazy about the art, but not bad. I mean, it definitely is interesting. Definitely looking forward to the next issue. It's Green Lantern. I love Green Lantern. And then the last book I saw this week was Superman. I loved it. I thought this was exactly what Superman comics should be. I love the whole tearing down the Daily Planet and then starting fresh, sort of like the new relaunch. I love seeing all the characters that I know and love in the book. I love seeing the adventure that when Superman was on, and the only thing that bothered me was the last page. Because I had already seen it, I feel like it lost its impact. Not that it wasn't impactful. I think it would have been more impactful if I had already seen that page. But I love it, and Superman will be one of my monthly buys. And it's one of those things that I only get X amount of books a month, and my biggest complaint for DC at the moment is there are too many books that I want to read, and but it's a good situation to have, and I'm going to be checking a lot in trade because I think a lot of them will read better in trade. But I'm loving this new DC. I think they're doing an amazing job, and as a consumer of DC products, I couldn't be happier. So that's about it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Jamie's asking some good questions here. The real question on the table, he's saying, what makes a good first issue? And it's funny, when he mentioned independent comics in there, I was thinking to myself, I read a lot of independent comics, and I have read a lot of independent comics. And one of the things I love about them is there's nothing cookie cutter about them. So I don't think that independent comics necessarily spoon feed everything to you, too. I don't think that's really a true statement. I think some do, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think, every author's got a right to tell the story the way they want to. In the case of Green Lantern, I thought the first issue, I still stand by, I think the first issue gives you everything you need to know about the current status of Sinestro and Hal Jordan. Does it leave some questions unanswered? Absolutely. Those are questions that are going to be answered along the way. And I honestly think if you don't have a mystery set up here for issue number 1, there's nothing to hook you into reading issue number 2. So I felt that it was very satisfying in that end. Sure, it leaves a lot of questions. You can't answer in one issue all of the questions that are on the table with Green Lantern. But I don't think that there's a lot of foreknowledge you need for issue number 1 of Green Lantern. That's where I take issue with this. I think we as fans a lot of times expect that every little piece of foreknowledge is something that you need in order to read and enjoy an issue, and I don't think that's the case. I do think that, there's a number of books in the New 52 where even with the foreknowledge I've got, where I'm like, I want to see what issue 2 and 3 have going on in order to understand what the direction is that the creator's going in. And I don't think that's a fault of the book. I don't think that makes for a bad first issue. I think that their job in the first issue is to give you enough hook to come back for issue 2. Okay, might leave a ton of questions along the way. Nothing wrong with that. There's enough hook there. I do 110% agree with Jamie that there's Green Lantern Corps has a very different first issue than Green Lantern. I don't think that necessarily makes one better than the other. And I think Jamie liked both, which is what he's saying. I mean, and I shouldn't say I think. He definitely likes both. He has said that repeatedly. It's really a question for new readers. I think there is a difference between a brand new reader to comics and a reader who has read different types of comics before, because you're walking in with certain expectations. I think if you've read a certain type of comic before and you're used to that delivery, you're going to walk in with that, like, expecting that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just kind of learning that, hey, that's not all comics are. Comics can tell any kind of story in any type of way, and I love the creativity of it. So for me, I thought all 3 Green Lantern issues were incredibly satisfying. I thought that they were all very different, which is what I want. I don't want 3 Green Lantern books that feel the same. I think that would be a big mistake. And I know it's not what you're asking for, Jamie. Was Green Lantern a good issue for a starting reader? I would not hesitate for any friend of mine who liked Hal Jordan to hand them Green Lantern number 1 and say, read this. Now, where I need to watch myself, and this is something I'm really trying hard to do, and that might be a lot of what you're getting from both of my responses to your voicemails. It's not that I'm arguing with you. It's more I'm kind of trying to change my own mentality about how I approach these new issues with New 52. I don't think that I always am the best person when it comes down to giving somebody, like a friend of mine I'm talking about, take it out of the show purposes. Like if I'm sitting down with a friend and we're sitting around the couch and we're chatting about a comic, hey, I want to read Batman. I want to read Green Lantern. I want to read Aquaman, whatever. What do I need to know in order to read it? I've got to get in the habit of staying away from giving like a lecture and to bring somebody into that comic, because I think a lot of times that's where I turn people off to books. So, it's different. When we're on the show, our expectations are that a lot of people listening are already fans of these books, or they're interested enough that they want to hear, the long discussions, back and forth about these characters. That's a little bit of a different mentality than somebody who's asking you, hey, I'd like to try this book now. Give me a quick little 2-second hook into that book. And I'm trying to get better at that myself and not feel like they have to know the character's entire history in order to do that. And I don't think with Green Lantern you need to know more than what they told in the first issue. I really don't. I think that there's questions there, and I think that the great thing about the internet nowadays and your friends being able to chat with you is they can ask those questions. We just have to be careful, though, because I think that there's a lot of history that's going on in Green Lantern, huge history that's going on in Green Lantern since Rebirth, that I don't think you necessarily need to know right now in order to enjoy the storyline's direction. What you need to know for this basic storyline, it's pure and simple, is Hal doesn't have the ring anymore. Why? Problem with the Guardians. Sinestro's got the ring now. They're not happy about it because they don't know why. It's that simple. That's all you need to know. I mean, there really is nothing else you need to know. There's other questions that are going to come up along the way, like why are the Guardians behaving they are and things like that. But that's stuff that's going to be fleshed out along the way. But the main storylines that are going on, really, to simplify it right now, are just those two. You don't need to know anything else right now in Green Lantern to read that book. That's it. So I think that first issue is tremendous for that. And I think if you want every single little piece of Green Lantern history spoon-fed to you, you can't fit that into that issue. And it's really going to derail the direction of that book right now and make it something that isn't very friendly to new readers. So I stand behind it being a good issue. That's kind of my take. But to me, what does a satisfying new issue have to have? I'm just going to say it again. I think it has to have a hook that brings you to want to read the second issue. And what that hook is, I think there's a reason why there's 52 different titles that DC's publishing. I think each of those titles has a different way of presenting that hook. And they're trying to see what sticks. What kind of things do people like? I think your certain titles, like your Bat titles and Green Lantern titles, are sure launching off of what's already worked for those books, because those books have been very popular. But you're seeing titles like Action Comics and Superman, for example, that are giving a new direction, a new kind of hook to try and generate readers that maybe the character, not maybe, definitely the character should have. I mean, this is one of the most iconic characters. Wonder Woman's another book that I can't tell you how many wonderful, tremendous creative teams have worked on that particular character. I think the sales numbers on Wonder Woman have been continually disgusting for how much quality's been in there in Wonder Woman. I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan. I'm thrilled to see another great creative team out there, and I'm hoping that the current direction and maybe the current way that they launched the title with all the buzz in all the new 52 books, I'm hoping that Wonder Woman gets a readership and maintains a readership that it should have. I thought this book was very satisfying and really shows that the creative team understands what's worked with so many of these great runs that have come before it with Wonder Woman. So I don't think Wonder Woman's the problem. I think just really getting the right readership to the book has been the problem. So I don't know. I mean, I think all of these things kind of add together to the simple direction is a good hook just to bring you back for the second issue, and a good hook to bring you for the third. I think every comic, with being a monthly medium, needs a hook to keep you reading. And it's something that's different from a chapter book, from a novel. I'm reading Heir to the Empire, the anniversary edition that was just released recently on my Kindle. And I read it years ago when it first came out. It's the Star Wars, for you guys don't know, it's the Thrawn trilogy from Star Wars by Timothy Zahn. It's tremendous. I read it years ago, but I haven't read it since. So I'm reading it again with like fresh eyes. But the first chapter doesn't even feature the main characters that we're used to from Star Wars. And that's the first chapter. Very meaty first chapter. They don't come in till chapter 2. So for a fan, that's something, and I thought Zahn wrote that book perfectly. But I mean, there's a lot of questions coming out of the first chapter as far as like what's going on with the whole main cast that we're used to. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as there's that hook. The first chapter gave me a hook to keep me reading the book. And I do think comics do have something in line with that. With a novel, obviously you've got the novel. But to me, in order to finish a novel, there's got to be enough hook in every chapter to keep me reading the book. Because there's so many other books that I want to read, so many novels I want to read. So I guess novels and comics for me have the same sort of thing. They need the same kind of hook to keep me reading. The novels that I finish the fastest are the ones with the hook that keeps me coming back again and again and again. And I can't put the book down. So I think comics need that same thing. What keeps me back monthly again and again and again. So Green Lantern had that. I don't know. I'm a big fan of what they're doing with the current Green Lantern direction, and I thought Green Lantern #1 was terrific. And I know, Jamie, you liked the book too, so we're not arguing that point. But that is, to me, what the hook is. It's a great question. This is a great conversation piece. And honestly, we may just agree to disagree as far as whether or not this was a great book for new readers. I think ultimately the only people that can decide that are the new readers who have jumped on the book. I actually would love to know if there's anybody, and this isn't a matter of, I'm right, Jamie's right, Jim's right, anybody's right. It doesn't matter about that. If you are a brand new reader to Green Lantern with Green Lantern #1, did you like the book? Did it hook you into buying issue #2? Because that to me that's the ultimate end result. Did you want to buy issue #2? I think that's all you need from the book. As long as it's done that and there's something satisfying in there that draws you back, that's a sign of a good book. That's just my take. What do you consider a good #1? Because you might see it differently than I do, and that's great if you do.
I think a good #1 makes you excited to read #2.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a good story. You need, a good groundwork. You need a good background. You need that X factor in that issue that makes you say, I want to read #2. Now, each issue, it's personalized based on the character. It's personalized based on the story. If you could hit the ground running, they have a high action sequence where it's an entire issue of bam, big explosion. You're like, oh, that's cool. Wonder what's going to happen next time. Or you could have this interplay where you really kind of get an understanding of the psyche behind the character. Then you have the dun 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 ending where you're like, ooh, where's this going to go next? I think it's personalized for the character. It's just that, and we've seen a bunch of them where it's left me really excited. Where I use my plus statement, where I'm like 2+, or issue I'm locked in solid for the story arc. It's it's that factor in the story that makes me want to go beyond. Makes me want to pick up the next issue. Not going, well, yeah, I'll read the next. I'll give it the first story arc and see where it goes. There's some stories that are doing that, some that are saying, hoorah, I'm all in, let's rock and roll.
I really find this a fascinating topic. So, it's one of those things where I don't know that there's necessarily a right or wrong here. I think we've all got different ideas on what makes a good number one issue. And, if you've been reading comics and you're reading certain types of comics, you might have that focus. Even if you're reading comics from a certain company, there is a difference, I think, from reading a Marvel comic and a DC comic. I think there's a difference between reading an Image comic and reading a DC comic. There's going to the independents. There's a difference between reading an independent comic and the independents. I hate lumping them almost into one category because it's so vast and so rich, everything that's being produced out there. But any comic, let's say any single title, if you're used to reading that certain type of book. I remember when I was reading Starman and the Flash, I was getting them monthly via subscription. When I said subscription, I was getting them, in the brown, not brown. Actually, they were doing the clear plastic mailers with kind of like a backing board. It was kind of like their subscription backing board thing that was in there that would come in and I would get my issue. And those two books couldn't have been more different, in their presentation. Two very different writers in Mark Waid and in James Robinson, and in the presentation of what they were doing in superhero comics. So I think, you have the same thing. If I was reading The Flash and all of a sudden I jumped over to a Starman, I'm going to get a very different delivery method, a very different storytelling in those two books, and it may not be what I was expecting. And it takes a couple issues, I think, to get used to that new thing. And I think that's what Green Lantern is in the case of your friends that were reading independent comics. I think they just need a couple issues to get kind of the flavor for what the author's doing. The real question is, though, was there enough hook in that first issue for that? And I don't know. I didn't really catch that from your comments. And that's something I think overall for all of these issues I'm very insanely curious with. For anybody out there that's listening to this show, what new title did you try, and was there enough hook to make you pick up issue 2? Did you want to? Were you like, hey, I got tons of questions here, but this is what hooked me into issue 2. What brought me into issue 2? I'd love to hear that from people as you're going along. So, feel free to call in with that information because that's what I'm curious about. That's what I'm really curious about.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
This is kind of funny. I loved the Savage Hawkman, and there's a part of me that wants to go there, but it's the Bat fan in me that wants to go to Nightwing #1.
Yeah.
So I'm very torn right now because we've really got to wrap up, and you're being very patient, and both of these are books that we put on the slate. We're going to talk about this, so we'll save a Savage Hawkman for the next episode and start on Nightwing #1 because I was in joy with this issue of Nightwing because it so didn't ignore anything that had been going on with the character. Got to the core of, I've read every issue of Nightwing. And when I say every issue of Nightwing, every miniseries of Nightwing, every crossover with Nightwing, Teen Titans appearances. If Nightwing's been in it, I've read it. And, did Kyle Higgins, Eddie Barrows, J.P. Mayer, I'll do the creative team in a minute, do a great job with the whole run. Actually, let me just go to it. J.P. Mayer and inks Rod Reese with the colors, and I apologize if I butchered that. Carlos M. Mangwell on letters. The cover by Barrows, Mayer, and Reese. Associate editor is Katie Kubert. Editor is Bobby Chase. Nightwing is created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. And, you know what it is? Dick Grayson, when he's written well, makes you want to be a superhero. And he does. And that was, since I was a kid, when he was Robin and on the Batman series, it was, Dick Grayson was the guy you wanted to be. You wanted to be Batman's sidekick. But as he got older and branched out on his own, he was the guy that kept that fun accessibility point. He never lost that. And I think that's something, anybody who understands how to write good Nightwing understands that you don't, and when it was Dick Grayson was Batman, what made him a great Batman? This wasn't lost. This is the guy that was Batman. They didn't take that away. And, there's something so great about this character when he's confident and he's got his identity. There's an accessibility. He's the big brother, the ultimate big brother, the ultimate best friend. He's the guy you look up to. You want to be Dick Grayson. This issue, I wanted to be Dick Grayson. And I loved every moment of that. He made me want to grab a line, go out swinging, do all that kind of crazy, kooky stuff that he's in there. He made me wish I was an acrobat. He made me believe again, as an adult, that I wanted to do this kind of stuff. And it's with all the discussions we've had about the real world issues with being a hero, I want to do what he does. Yeah. I do. This was great. This is easily in my top 5. This book, no way it's going anywhere.
I think this was just a really fun read, and I don't have the lengthy love that you have with the character, but when all the stuff we always comment about him, how he is just that fun person, and you get to see the action sequences, his personalized fighting style that is that acrobat, and there is just so much about him that is so much fun and neat to read. And I got such a great vibe, a fun vibe from this. His inner dialogue as he's going through everything, saying, "Hey, I've been through all this. I've been, I've filled in for Batman for that year. Gotham's thrown its worst at me, and I came out stronger because of this." And you see him just in the groove, and he's, times perfectly jumping into that, subway car right before it goes into the tunnel. Perfect precision, takes out the big bad guy, does, is really just opening up and just bam, 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 being just this cool hero. And I loved seeing just the fun and just the flow. And we talked earlier about Selena, how she did the stick and move type of fighting style. Dick Grayson, same style. It's that acrobatic type of fighting style. And it is just fun to read, fun to watch. And this is a character that, I wish got more attention into the outside world. I wish more people actually got to see how cool Robin grown up became, what cool superhero he became. Because everybody knows the name Dick Grayson as Robin. They don't really realize that he grew up and he became an adult and he's his own hero.
I'm going to argue with that to a certain extent because of the Batman the Animated Series and stuff like that. Because I do think that there is a bit of an awareness of it. Not as much, I will correct myself, you're right, it's not as much as Robin, so I'm going to agree with you, amen 100% there. But I do think that it's a little bit more known to the general public who watched because that animated series was incredibly popular. Well, it depends on how far along people watched it, though. So
see, I'm talking people who didn't watch the cartoon. I'm talking general public who doesn't know who, that Dick Grayson is Nightwing. Just like I've had times when at work people will ask me a question or they'll say something offhand and, Dick Grayson has come up, "Hey, Robin." I'll say, "Well, which one?" Like, "What do you mean?" I'll go through and I'll give them the quick story how there's been multiple Robins, and I'll say, the original Robin, Dick Grayson, he became Nightwing. Nightwing, oh yeah, it's I'll throw out just a little blips about who Nightwing is, and usually at that point in time, their eyes start to glass over. I'm like, "Okay, Jim, stop
This is
talking."
what I meant. This is exactly in that last voicemail we were talking about with Jamie. This is why I'm fighting against that. Because I do stuff like that, and that's the stuff I'm trying to avoid doing with people, because it overwhelms them. If I want them to read, first of all, those people aren't reading Robin either. They might know what the concept of Robin. I think everyone knows that Batman has a sidekick. What I'm going to do instead in that case, if I want them to read Nightwing, because I think that they'll connect with the character, I'm just going to give them Nightwing and tell them this is a great book. This is Batman's former Robin. Done. Move away. Let them read it. If they ask me about him, I'll say, read that first, then ask me. Because I'm going to tell people from now on, read it first, then ask me questions. No, because I think that's a better way to do it. I'm not going to inundate them ahead of time because I do that, and I'm trying to get away from it. I think this issue of Nightwing was a great introductory issue into the character. I would not hesitate to give this character. Talk about great introductory issue. Right. This one, right out of the starting gate, I think is a terrific issue. But that's what I meant earlier. So it really was not Jamie, or anything about that. It's that kind of stuff you were just talking about. I'm very guilty of doing that, giving them too much information ahead of time, and I think it ruins the reading experience. Let the writers do that. And then if they want to talk about it afterwards, they can talk to you, they can look on Google. There's so much information out there now that we didn't have, but not beforehand, because once they gloss over, I think you've lost them.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I'm only doing that to the people who really don't want to know.
Right.
The people who, it's instead of saying, "Hey, how you doing?" Just that general chat where they don't really want to know. They make the mistake of saying, "Hey, so what's new with comics, Jim?" And they don't really care. So I give them the answer. And sometimes I'm nice and I'll say, I'll control my geekness and just throw out a quick blip. But sometimes, if I'm feeling a little bit mean, or if I'm want to entertain myself, I'll start going into it, and I'll start going and I've had moments where people started walking away from me, and I just kept walking behind them as I kept talking, finally to the point where shut up. I'm like, okay.
Wait a minute. So I'm getting confused here, because we started on this discussion tangent because you were saying that I wish the general public knew more about Dick Grayson.
Yes.
So you can annoy them with it?
No, not. I don't want them to know about. I want them to know because he's a great character.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying you're telling your tactic is I'm annoying the people who don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're helping the cause.
We each have to have our own little quirks and our own little ways to amuse ourselves. One of the things I do is sometimes. I like to make other people uncomfortable, and it's this is a great way to do it.
I do it all I do it all the time. I do it all the time. I think I make you uncomfortable every episode. And you still record with me, which is great. That's only because you're used to dealing with my abuse. But what a great issue for the character. Now let me ask you this: like me, I became a believer in Dick Grayson as Batman, but I was, out of the two of us, I was definitely the detractor who was saying I wanted Bruce back. Eventually got to the point where I wanted Dick Grayson to stay on as Batman when Bruce came back. I liked the idea of Dick Grayson staying on. After reading this issue, he's Nightwing to me. He's got to stay Nightwing to me. The double-page spread. I'm finally me again, Dick Grayson, Nightwing. I was like, oh, hoorah. Because I've always maintained, and I still stick to it, that I think Dick Grayson is a good enough character. And you're kind of alluding to this, actually, with your I wish more people knew about him as a character. I think he's a strong enough character that he has earned the right to his own role. I think he's interesting enough that he can keep his own role. He doesn't need to be Batman to be an A-lister. This was an A-list book to me. But what was your take? Were you like? I mean, you don't have to agree with that. Did you long for him to be Batman again after reading this? Do you like him better as Nightwing? Or are you kind of either A or B? Where were you at after reading this issue?
Well, I'm going to go with option D.
Okay.
You said either A or B. I'm going to go option D.
Just because you got a larger alphabet, yeah.
Yeah, just because I want to be difficult.
Good. Well, D's a good choice then.
Exactly. But all seriousness, I love this. I'm glad he's Nightwing. I was the guy who wanted him to always stay as Batman. I was like, you know what? He's earned the stripes. Let him keep it. When they said he was going back to being Nightwing, I was like, okay, we'll see. If he, I was like, okay. And as soon as, right from the get-go here, I'm a believer, man. It just, once again, this is the character I loved. This is the character I was enjoying as Batman. I'm still seeing that same fun energy to him. I'm seeing him as Nightwing, and it's, if he ever needs to put the cowl back on for whatever reason, I'd be cool with that, because storyline driven, he needs to wear it, to help out Bruce or fill in shoes or do whatever he's got to do. But eventually always knowing that one day he'll go back to being Nightwing because that is who he is. Yeah. That is his character. That is personality. That is his core. He's Nightwing.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad they. First of all, I'm so glad they didn't go back to him being Robin. I'm glad they didn't go that route when they did the New 52, like kind of relaunch Batman and put him back there. Just because I think this is a character who, at this point, just needs his own book, needs to maintain a title. I'm glad that they did this. It's funny. The new suit. There was one of these redesigns where I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, I like it, but I was hoping they would go more traditional Nightwing. Now that I've seen it on the cover and in action, I love this. I'm like the first panel on the page where you're seeing him in the boots. They look like the hiking climbing boots that you'll see at a sporting goods store now. Those hiking shoes and things like that. They're very functional, which a guy who's an acrobat, you can't slip. You need to be able to concentrate, to be able to rely on your footing, to be able to pull off those moves with precision. That outfit looks like it's geared towards precision acrobatic fighting. And it's funny how a little tiny consistent detail like those boots was important to me. It was. I mean, this is like a no-skid character, you know what I mean? I like that. I mean, there was something important about this character looking functional without losing the sleekness, without losing the coolness factor. That suit just looks cool in action, which Dick Grayson's got to look. He should look like the coolest character in the DC universe. I think that's important for him.
And I got to completely agree with you what you're saying on the boots, but I also liked how his batons are on his forearms. And there's a definite place where they're located. They're locked in place. That's where they're at. I was glad to see that. The only thing I would have liked to see more, is, and I don't know how they could have done it to keep the sleekness and what he needs to, for that his style, is I wish there was some type of compartments, some type of bat utility belt. Just because I always think that, any member of the Bat family needs to have some variation on it where they have their gadgets.
See, and I agree with you, and I don't. Only because I kind of like the fact that he's kind of not the cliche Bat character. He's got his own style, does his own thing. I believe that his costume would adapt at some other time, just as Dick Grayson will, because it's changed and modified. Like, this is Nightwing version 3 or 4, depending on how you... Well, let's say 4. It's version 4 of the Nightwing costume. I might be wrong on that. There might be more that I'm thinking over the time. I'm going back to his original suit as Nightwing, straight on through to his first solo suit, and I think there was a second solo suit. And there's this one, and I could be wrong on that. I might be shortchanging the Nightwing suits. But I do think he's a character that stylistically can adapt slightly like Bruce does over time. I don't know that I would have an issue if he had one, but I agree with you that I'd like to see at some point in time how he stores. Like, he's got these grappling hooks. Where are they at? Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I want to see that, and that's something, as the series goes on, I want to see the location of that as well. I don't, depending on where they are, maybe I don't.
I don't know. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe some secrets are better left unknown.
Yeah. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. But I agree with you on the batons completely, because in previous suits of his, there's been a location for the batons. Sometimes it's on the back, sometimes other. And those you're carrying around batons, they better be somewhere. Yeah. And the forearms are a pretty good location for them, and I think that's a good defensive location for them as well. As far as if you can't get to them quickly, you can throw up the forearm and use that as a support piece for the forearm to deflect a blow before you get the baton off, which I think is just a good location for it as well. Bringing back the circus and his reasoning for staying away from the circus, I thought was something that was very interesting in all this.
That'd be a tough thing to do, to go back there. Just the massive amounts of memories, good and bad there, and just two, who he is. And I loved how he says that Gotham has a way of taking stuff that you love and twisting it and turning it against you. I thought that was awesome.
And that was something that I really liked, that there would be a certain amount of fear at going back to this. It's not just his family's death. There's something more to it than that, and I really enjoyed that. I also liked seeing the killer introduced for the first time. You know, the one that's trying to hunt down Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson instead of hunting down Nightwing, which is interesting how his civilian identity is the one that's actually being hunted.
Yeah, this was, again, it's those moments in a comic when you know, okay, you're doing something really stupid here. Those two guys, they're picking the fight with the dude in the sunglasses, and he's not even remotely phased. And as they're going on, they're kind of, you know, puffing out their chests, being all tough guys. I'm like, oh, these guys are so dead. They are just so dead, and just the way he takes them down, I was just really impressed. Just, you know, and we see later on how good he is up against Nightwing. He's better, you know, and it was just a great introduction to a killer. And the thing that got me interested in him is he's coming in by bus.
Yeah,
I'm thinking this is a personal vendetta. This isn't a contracted killer, because, you know, if you're a contracted killer, you have a little bit more financial, you know, resources, and you wouldn't come in through the bus. You'd come in a car, maybe a plane or something.
unless you want to come in under the radar.
There's better ways to come in under the radar. I'm just thinking, you know, for me, this is a sign that this is a personal vendetta, not a contract.
What are the better ways to come in under the radar?
You drive in so no one sees you.
So you drive in with a car with a license plate where you could be identified? There's no identification on a bus.
Yeah, there is when you're buying the ticket.
Depends on how you
And
buy
there's a camera.
Depends on how you buy the ticket.
Yeah. Well,
You can, I mean, there's all different kinds of options there. Plus, here's the other thing is, too, they have to know you took the bus in order to search for you on the bus. You know, usually they're going to be searching for rental cars, credit card receipts, things like that. There's no indication who this guy is from the bus. I don't know. I guess I took it more as he was coming in under the radar. I don't know that you're, and let me clarify this. I don't know that you're necessarily wrong on this. It's one of the things that I liked. You and I see this character differently. I really liked this assassin, and I liked that seeing an assassin come in by bus is not something you normally see. And I was thinking about how he was coming in really under the radar as like the man with no name, with the, you know what I mean? I think that was no identity, minimalist, you know, and I think a lot of times if in this day and age of technology where you can leave a paper trail very easily where you are, to not come in a rental vehicle, to not come in being driven by somebody. You know what I mean? Yes, he's being driven by a bus driver, but how many people walk in and out of that bus? He's walking in very unassuming clothing. You know, there's nothing on him that would indicate like anything that would set up red flags to this guy, to the point where when he comes off the bus, you got two guys here that think he's easy pickings. Yeah, I mean, there was something I really just enjoyed in the presentation of this character because of it.
And I completely agree with you. And it could very easily be that. But here's the thing. Fugitive task force, you know, the people who are who hunt down missing people, who hunt down escaped convicts. One of the things you do is you hit the bus terminals and you go with the pictures. And it's a bus terminal is very easy to actually identify somebody because you have that specific walk up. You have that specific where they're at the ticket booth, where they're buying their ticket, where they're turning in their ticket, and there's a camera taking a picture of their face at that time.
But how will they know to look for him? There's nothing. You're talking about a fugitive where this guy's got a costume on when he's operating.
Right. And they won't know that. I'm just throwing out there that I know this is a way that people get caught very easily. So for me, I always think you're not under the, people would think you're under the radar. You're not. There's a lot of times when you're being seen. It is actually easier to slip into a town driving in. You know, you just do the fake out the, change out the plates, put on, counterfeit plates that look real. Don't do anything that's going to draw attention to the local law enforcement. You're in and out, and you've just disappeared.
I guess I misunderstood what you were saying about driving in, though, because you said this guy was driving. You said that this guy would drive in if he has money.
Yeah.
Would come in. How would you see him coming in if he has money? See, I guess to me, you're coming in more.
If you have the resources, you can very easily get a car that has no connection to you. You can get fake plates, put the fake plates on. As long as you're not stupid, which this guy isn't stupid, you're not going to draw any attention to you except for, what you want to be seen as.
I guess I don't see how that would be better than what he did. That's what I'm confused by. Like, I'm actually, I'm not insulting you. I'm actually, no. I take everything you say as something as important. So you threw this out here as being like the sweeping statement about this guy, and I'm interested in it. So I'm more interested in how you see it than poking holes in what you're saying. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not seeing it the way you are, so I want to see it the way you are.
And it's
so that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to poke holes in what you're saying, other than I'm pointing out how I don't see it the way you're saying to see if maybe there's something I'm missing out of what you're saying, because I want to know. I think it's interesting.
And you may not, and to be honest, you may not be missing anything. This is just one of those, kind of plus thoughts of mine where I'm looking at what he's doing, what his motivation behind it. And for me, I see a contracted killer wouldn't go about this way. I see this as just him traveling his own personal, he's doing this for his own reasons. It's a financial resources type of mindset. This guy doesn't have the financial resources that he could make it himself be completely under the radar, driving in himself. High-end, really, really high-end killers can fly in. Someone like Deathstroke flies in. Completely under the radar. You have no idea he's been there. He's in, he's out. You never even knew he was there because he's got that high-end financial resources. A regular, everyday killer, contracted, done a couple jobs, pretty good at what he does or what she does. They can get, have the resources to have that exact same, anonymity, driving in. This guy, I'm saying he doesn't have that, long history. He doesn't have that, repertoire. He's not someone out there that you want to get a job done, call Johnny. He can take care of this. He's the best there is. That's why I'm saying it's a personal thing. That's why he's going after Dick Grayson. There's something Grayson did or something about Grayson that's making him say, I got to take this kid out.
Well, and he is saying that Dick Grayson is the fiercest killer in all of Gotham, and he doesn't even know it. So there is a personal vendetta there. I agree with that. I guess I was taking this guy as more trained and more professional because of his outfit, the way he carries himself, his acrobatics, but that maybe could be part of his link to Dick Grayson.
Right. He's trained. And he is a professional, but I don't think he's a contract professional. I think he's a personal trained, it's his personal professional code of conduct. It's not something they learned as in the trade. Like Deathstroke is a trained professional. This guy is a trained killer. You see my distinction?
But Dick Grayson even says everything about this guy screams hired killer.
Right.
So this is Dick Grayson who's saying this.
But Dick doesn't know the whole story about the guy that we know. But he doesn't know all the details.
So I guess what I'm saying here is you're saying that this is Dick Grayson. The guy was Batman.
Right.
So I guess I'm going off of the case that I'm having more confidence in Batman than I have in you.
Well, you know what? I probably have more confidence in him than me. I'm not going to knock you on that because, you know what? Yes.
So I guess I am trying. I apologize.
I'm self-trained.
I apologize. I guess I am contradicting you because I'm looking at Dick Grayson here and I'm going, Dick Grayson's saying this guy's a hired killer. This is Batman. I'm siding with Batman.
You can side with Batman all you want, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. We'll find out as the story goes on.
See, you know what? And I have no issue if you're right on this one. I'll publicly say that right now. I'll still be able to say I sided with Batman.
Yeah.
I know he's Nightwing now, but he was still Batman.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet there's a lot of people who are saying, yeah, and they're completely in agreement with you. So
no, there's a lot of people I'm sure are in agreement with you. It's an interesting argument. Going back to this Haley's Circus thing, I was glad to see the clown. I love that whole bit with him. Was it Jimmy? Was that his name? The clown who was really upset about the fact that he had to wear the green wig. Because I was wondering what color he was talking about in that first panel. Because I read the book the first time in guided view on my iPad, and it zoomed to that panel, so I didn't see the other panel until I, clicked until I tapped for it to shift to that. I'm like, oh, I would not want to wear that wig and that green wig on my head and be a clown in Gotham in a million years.
Oh, yeah. In the traditional comic, you got to flip the page to see the next image and see that, it is. So that's a great, just actually a great page layout because you're sitting there and I'm looking at him like, is he talking about the purple outfit, the white face? And then you flip over, you see the green hair. I'm like, no way. I'd be like, fire me.
Yeah,
because that right there is just painting a large bullseye on your chest saying, please, Mr. Joker, kill me. I'm impersonating you in your hometown. That's a no-no.
I don't know if I'd be comfortable being at a circus in Gotham in general, with the history of the Joker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just thinking that this would be like a prime target for him, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But, I mean, the show must go on, as they say. I loved this Raya, the redhead. Seeing that there was a history from, Dick's younger years with redheads. Wasn't the first time, he'd fallen for a redhead with Barbara. Because first of all, Barbara's book is another one of my top fives on that list.
Yes.
It's funny how, Bat books are winding up there because they're so good. And that Barbara Gordon Batgirl book is so outstanding. And this is up there with that. I mean, this is the type of quality Bat books that keep me reading Batman titles. And, I like seeing the issue. Is she going to be a love interest? What's the issue with Mark? Is there more to Mark's story? How's he going to feel about Dick Grayson if there's a relationship developing with him and Raya? There's like already supporting cast questions that I have going on because I don't see Dick Grayson walking away from the circus at this point.
I think it's in him. There's too much going on with him, and just I can't see him walking away from this now. And he even kind of comments when you see him flipping around, and then he goes, "Oop, I gotta forget. I can't look like I've been training and practicing." I love the fact that he faked the fall and he actually went through and was like, okay, because. He's got to protect the secret identity, and the look on her face was awesome.
Yes.
She's beaming, and he's like, "Whoa!" And and Mark's like, "Whoa!" That little bit of shock as he's doing his thing, and I thought that was awesome.
She's beaming at the familiarity.
Yeah,
because she's seen that before from him. I love that Dick had to catch himself. That would be so hard to do. Like the exhilaration, the thrill, the familiar. You're back home again. Because for him, this is home. This is something that he experienced with his family. This is a chance, in many ways, not just reconnecting with the trapeze, but he's reconnecting with his parents by doing this. Because this is something he did with them. And to make the decision to not make it look too good, when he's having that kind of emotional experience right there, I thought was something that shows his maturity and discipline, and I really appreciated that. It's funny, the contract killer, I've been teasing you with your plus. And after you explained it, I'm so totally on board with it because I do that as a reader. I think it's why did I go crazy when you were talking about your feelings on him? It's because I think I've been thinking about this character off the page, and I think we've both developed clearly from our debate over it our own impressions on this character, which shows that this is a well-crafted character. I think that's where you and I we'll take where we veered off and bring it back together, and I think this is something we're in firm agreement with. Very cool introductory villain character for Nightwing. I like it as a fresh character that we're clearly going to see more of this character, and there's a lot of potential for this guy to be an ongoing, reoccurring nemesis for Nightwing because he's got the skills to give Dick Grayson a run for his money, which is very hard to do. And I absolutely adored the action sequences of him jumping around, and just seeing these two going at it, where Dick Grayson's really fighting to keep up with this guy, fighting to hold his own against this guy, and not expecting what's coming next.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing, that scene where Dick says everything about this guy screams hired killer. Mm-hmm. Hired killer is in parentheses, by the way. So even Dick isn't certain that he's a hired killer.
Why does... We could just say just killer. Murderer, assassin.
Yeah.
Hired killer. Wait.
Dick's doing the parentheses, so hired killer. So
Jim, we all do things in quotes because he doesn't have a name for the character other than that.
I'm thinking even Dick has his doubts. I think Dick's siding with me.
I think you're really stretching. I think you're really stretching.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Just let me do it, all right?
I'm saying for a guy that helped put down Nightwing like that, he's very well trained for a one focused guy. I don't know, but you know what? I will honestly admit, taking the joking out of it, because I think it's an interesting debate. He's a character that I like the mystery to him. So I don't think it's that cut and dry. I will actually agree with you on that. I don't think it's that cut and dry. The more that I'm reading the character, the more that I'm thinking about your points about the character. I will admit it's a possibility. This guy's got, and we could both be wrong on it. There could be something other going on with him. I don't know. I'm very interested to see what the deal with this guy is because I find him interesting, and I actually really like the mystery more than anything else.
Right. And here's the other thing. This guy... This isn't his first rodeo, obviously. He's killed before, so he is a trained killer. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying I don't think he's here on this mission to take down Dick as a contract killer. It's a personal mission to him. There's a personal reason behind him doing this, and I think he trained to do the personal mission. And in training, you do have to have some practice runs. You do have to, be used to killing. You don't want the first time you kill someone to be your primary target. You want to, lead up to it, and it's why people, when they talk about serial killers as little children, they're killing small animals. They build up to it. So he's definitely killed before. You see the ease where he takes out the two cops. He has no remorse in killing the thugs at the bus stop. So there's multiple signs that yes, this guy is training. Yes, this guy has a history. But I'm just saying he's not a Deathstroke. He's not Slade. He's a completely different entity.
See, I would say the ease that he killed the people coming off the bus, the ease that he killed the police officers, indicates that he is more like that. Because this is a guy who he isn't just targeting Dick Grayson. He is killing anybody in the way of getting to Dick Grayson. I don't know that it was like when he got off the bus, he didn't have to kill those guys. He could have incapacitated them. There was all kinds of other options. He killed them just because he can.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, and that just because I see it that way doesn't mean I'm right. I guess I'm pretty set on what I'm thinking, but there's been a lot of times where I've been extremely set on what I'm thinking, and you've been 100% correct. So I find this interesting because I will agree that there's what you're saying is extremely possible on this. It's just I'm not seeing the evidence to indicate that on my end, but you are, and that doesn't mean you're wrong. So I don't know. It's interesting. I'm actually curious to our listeners. Which way do they see him, or are they seeing some third possibility with this character? I don't know. I think what it matters to me the most, and I think what the moral of this story is, we both care enough about this character that we're fighting passionately over the fact of who we think he is and what his deal is, which is your plus thing that you're talking about. Yeah. To bring it all back, I really, it's funny. I was teasing about the plus thing earlier, but I agree with you. I think anytime you take that character beyond the page and you try to fill in their backstory, try to figure out what it is and all that, that's a sign of a great title. This is a great opening issue. Did I mention how good it is to be me again? I loved that, Dick Grayson laughing about that, though. I love that the ribs breaking become an issue where, it's getting tougher to breathe. This gives this guy who he's already having trouble going toe-to-toe with an edge. I love that the guy used his environment as an opportunity.
That was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Cuts the water tower and bam, it was completely the distraction and look over here and I'm going to hit you this way. That was beautiful.
Great improvisational combat.
Yeah.
Does your issue, I don't know how your issues work with ads and stuff. Do you get that Hot Wheels ad in the back?
The Hot Wheels ad in the back.
Do you know what I'm talking about? The DC Originals, Faster Than a Speeding Bullet, Superman holding a Hot Wheels Superman truck?
No.
The ad I have in the back of it's HotWheelsCollector.com. There's special edition DC vehicles that it's advertising. I didn't know if it looked the same for you as it does for me. There's a Superman van. There's a Batman. I don't know if it's a Batmobile. I should probably zoom in on it as we're going through.
Yeah, I don't have any Hot Wheels ads.
Yeah.
I got a Got Milk ad.
Yeah, and there's a Wonder Woman bus, and then there's a Flash vehicle, and it's interesting. These special limited edition DC Hot Wheel, or special edition DC Hot Wheel cars. There's 4 of them at least on this listing of them. I don't know. I don't know if it worked the same.
Does it say how you get them?
HotWheelsCollector.com? I'm assuming you get them at the store, too. But HotWheelsCollector.com.
Holy caffeine!
Once again, our sponsors for this episode, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, once again, 50% off all the 52 DC number 4 issues, $159.48 regularly, $79.74 through this amazing offer. Over at InStockTrades.com, remember to check out the Commandy Omnibus hardcover. The first 20 issues are collected, 448 pages, $49.99 regularly, 38% off, only $30.99. And I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our podcast. And remember, they are also your digital portal for Comixology, so check them out. Our next episode, definitely going to talk about the Savage Hawkman, number 1. I want to talk about that book. And then a whole bunch of other new 52 stuff. We're just going to kind of take a look at a lot of what we're going to be doing with the New 52 books is taking a look at, as we're getting into second issues, more of the second issues that are coming out about books that we haven't chatted about yet. We're going to have to talk casually about some of the favorite titles, too, as we're going along, so we're not going to be ignoring titles that we've talked about before. But we want to make sure we do cover-to-covers of every single book. So that way, by the time we're done with our exploration of the New 52, we'll have had at least an episode where we've covered every single title. Because we haven't done that in ages, and there's usually always titles that we never get to because we just pick our favorites and keep going. So it'd be fun to talk about our thoughts and feelings on each of the New 52 books as we go along to hopefully give you that impression. So some of them we are going to be hitting issue 2 on just because we're already there. And it's kind of silly to, ignore that there's a fact that there's a second issue. Because I'm sure people that have been buying them are going to want to hear our thoughts on the first 2 issues of that particular title. So we're going to go that route with it. But I'm really enjoyed this show. It was fun to talk about the New 52 again. We will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Fated for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see, Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me, Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.